We gotta talk about that one. Exactly. When do we 3 weeks ago? Like always in crisis. Boy, me too, but that's why I think they have planned, they have this, during the negotiation, that's exactly. What I was thinking too. It's like,
Call that up. Rather than go back and forth on those emails. So they're starting the process.
Of
to have-
what?
To get the shared space of Franklin Public Library, to get to a different space in the school, just have that library as a home. This is a joint use. That's what it is. So I just said, I'm just gonna see conference.
So we'll, hence, then we got a plan for all of the, everything for the center from here on out.
No, it's just our library, like every
Yeah.
else's.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's just the process.
Would,
You can play it in here, but
I don't need to. I just go, if I can point and click.
off the top of your head, would you know why, since I got my computer back from them updating it, that I am bombarded when I go on now with this entire square being told, giving me all kinds of advertisement.
notifications.
Yeah.
I can show you how to turn them on.
And the McAfee antivirus is on here freaking all the time. Your
Yes, I get that too.
subscription's running out, blah, blah. Yeah, or the virus protect, whatever. the
Yeah,
hell
it pops up on mine too.
The Norton.
No,
Yeah, it's always, it just pops up here all the time, like your,
You go ahead and log in for me. No, it's not gonna, you're not gonna, you know it's not gonna happen right
no,
around here, right?
because I already have.
Jack, can you click right down and that, see the notification, that little notification thing right there? Can you click there? I see, I can't see the thing. We don't need Mac.
Well, it just keeps showing up, showing up, showing up. But I try to get out, and what it does is
So what's happens when sometimes you go like a website,
Special cord
like to
that he
like
has to use.
this. Chrome says do notifications for you. That's what it actually is. The notification. So maybe, and I don't know how it, I don't remember if it asks you at some point, kind of you just click yes.
okay, because I don't say purposely yes to anything.
I know, but it's one of those things that pops up that almost looks, it looks legit. So that's those notifications, and then
I learned a long time ago to say yes.
okay.
Good evening. This meeting is called to order at 6:34. I apologize to those of you who've been waiting at home. Welcome to the Elk Grove Unified School District's virtual board meeting through the Zoom webinar platform. We thank you for joining us and ask for your patience in advance as we navigate this platform for conducting school board meetings. Legislative bodies, including school districts, are permitted to hold board meetings telephonically or by other electronic means because on March 17th, 2020, the governor issued Executive Order N2920 suspending certain provisions of the California Ralph M. Brown Act. In addition, consistent with the March 19th, 2020 statewide shelter-in-place order issued by the governor, Executive Order N3320, the Sacramento County Shelter-at-Home orders issued on March 19th, 2020, and April 7th, 2020, and the Center for Disease Control CDC social distancing guidelines, which discourage public gatherings. This regular board meeting is being conducted via the Zoom webinar platform. Tonight, we will have Zoom audio public comments. Those indicating in advance of this meeting through the Google platform that they would like to speak during public comment using the Zoom platform, your name will be called upon during the appropriate section of the meeting. At that time, your microphone will be unmuted. On the screen at home, there will be a message asking you to unmute, and once you click or tap to unmute, your microphone will be live and you'll be able to give your public comment. When your time is complete or you have finished, your microphone will be muted by the district. You must have the most recent version of Zoom platform client to make live public comments. If you do not have the latest version, you will not be able to make your live comment. During your public comment, a timer will be available on the screen. At the end of your comment time, you will be muted. Public comment. The district believes in an all-inclusive, welcoming, safe environment for all of our community. Public comments provided an opportunity for members of the public to address the Board of Education in an open meeting. The board will not take action or discuss on any item not appearing on the posted agenda except as authorized by law. The board respects each individual's right to express ideas and opinions pursuant to applicable law and board policy, and the board will not prohibit public criticism of the board or the district. It's an ongoing objective of the district to serve all our students and to prepare them to flourish as responsible, ethical, and productive citizens. In preserving this mission, we kindly ask that when making public comment, you refrain from the use of profanity, exercise tolerance of others and their viewpoints, and exemplify model behavior. Please be mindful that students are watching. You are encouraged to address the board at the public in a respectful manner such that all those observing, from children to adults, are made to feel welcome, safe, and valued. The board will not permit any disturbance or willful interruption of board meetings. Persistent or excessive disruption by any individual or group shall be grounds for the board president to terminate the privilege of addressing the board. We appreciate the public's participation and your assistance in helping the board keep its meetings efficient, effective, and respectful. All written electronic public comments that were submitted will be provided to the Board of Education in writing. Today's meeting is being video recorded and will be available on the district's YouTube channel. Mr. Murray, could you please come up and help us lead the flag salute?
Please stand. Ready, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murray. We will start with our presentations and recognitions. Our high school student board representatives, Laguna Creek and Sheldon High School, and Mr. Murray is first on our agenda.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman and Ms. Avalos. Tonight we have presentations from Laguna Creek High School and Sheldon High School. At this time, we'll play their videos.
Good evening, President Albiani, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Avalos. I'm Destiny and I'm from Laguna Creek.
Hi everyone, my name's Alyssa Dakanai and I'm a junior from Laguna Creek High School.
Academic achievements. Laguna Creek's academics have been right on target lately, and we're very excited to report that our mathletes here at LC have had a great year. They have won twice and only lost once in their 3 competitions this year. Laguna Creek's mathletes team has around 30 people that participate in weekly meetings as well as monthly competitions. These competitions have occurred since October, with the most recent on March 17th, and our final one of the year is on April 15th. Currently, our team is in the 2nd place for meets in the Sacramento region and is in 1st place for the Math Cup, which is only for EGUSD and includes both meets and scores from California Math League competitions. Our LC Cardinal Theater Company is actually hard at work making a short film that is written by me and produced by me, so be on the lookout for that. Student Unity Efforts.
With the switch from full distance learning to the hybrid schedule of 2 days or 4 days, our student body has done a great job at adjusting, as well as our ASB program making the returning students feel very welcomed and comfortable on their first day back to campus. For the first day back for Wednesday and Friday students, as well as Tuesday and Thursday students, posters were hung, banners were made, a red carpet was set, and the LC staff was very excited to have the students back on campus.
Along with our ASB program making our students feel welcomed, our Link Crew organization have done an amazing job with making the freshman students feel very comfortable with an in-person tour of our school. Our Link Crew volunteers were each assigned 4 to 5 freshmen and gave them tips about the campus, a walkthrough of where each department was located, and the chance to meet and talk with other students. Athletics.
Our athletics have made some great achievements this year, even with the seasons changing for some sports such as soccer and football. Each student was able to represent LC to the best of their ability by giving their full effort on every single play. Our baseball program is doing amazing right now. Both our JV and varsity teams are 3-0 currently. Overall, they have 2 wins against Sheldon and 1 win against Bella Vista. And our varsity baseball has also scored 10+ runs in every single game. Noah Lucchesi, a senior at Laguna Creek High School, also threw a no-hitter at the first Sheldon game.
Our varsity football team has a record of 1-1 with a loss of only 3-0 against El Dorado and a great win 42-0 against Apalachee. The Laguna Creek Winter Guard has submitted virtual competitions for the WGI National Semifinals in the Winter Guard Scholastics Open Division. Winter Guard International is the world governing group for all competitions in this activity, staging a world championships each April in Dayton, Ohio. Laguna Creek is the only guard from California still competing and will learn on April 11th whether they will move on to the national finals competition to be broadcast nationally by the Flow Sports on April 17th, or our students have worked extraordinarily hard this season, and we are proud of the perseverance regardless of the outcome. In conclusion, thank you very much for your time, and we hope you enjoyed our presentation of all of the achievements Laguna Creek managed to accomplish both online and on campus.
Good evening, President Albiani, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Mrs. Avalos. My name is Divya Chauhan. I'm a senior at Sheldon High School.
And I'm Sanjay Kaur, and I'm a senior at Sheldon High School as well. This is our interesting way to share with you what we've been up to at Sheldon, and we're pleased to let you know that we have a lot to report back.
Even with the changing coronavirus guidelines and restrictions, some of our activities have been modified as school life continues for our students on and off campus now. Many of our programs are continuing to meet weekly, participate in virtual community service projects, some of which are hosted through Zoom. In addition to help all of our students, the Sheldon counseling staff continues to focus on the virtual office where students can go to access mindful resources and other helpful links, as well as the Google Classroom for seniors to stay caught up with college information and questions. Our College and Career Center has also been working hard to stay connected with our students by providing updates on college and career information and updating Google Classroom daily. Our counseling staff continues to do an amazing job providing valuable information so students so they can achieve academic success and get answers to questions during this critical period in their lives. In November, we recognized our students' academic success from quarters 3 and 4 of the 2019-2020 school year. In February, we recognized students' academic achievement in quarters 1 and 2 of the 2020-2021 school year. Our wonderful vice principals and ASB students took time to create recognition videos for each grade. The number of students excelling in classroom remains high, even with the distance learning, and almost 700 students from quarters 3 and 4 of the last academic school year and about 900 students for quarters 1 and 2 for this academic school year earned a 3.75 GPA or higher during the initial start of the distance learning last spring.
ASB has been hosting and promoting multiple student activities geared towards distance learning. With some heavy modification, Sheldon still had our multicultural rally that was uploaded to YouTube following social distancing guidelines. This year's rally still included involvement and participation from a wide variety of students, including performances by Pacific Islanders Club, Punjabi Club, Black Student Union, Sheldon Breakers Club, and our very own dance group, Universal Rhythm. To keep students connected and up to date on school events, ASB has been creating weekly announcement slides for teachers to post in their Google Classroom at the beginning of each week.
Here are a few student groups that have recently been working hard and we would like to recognize. Sheldon Science Olympiad team recently placed second at the regional competition and will be moving on to the state competition. 2 mock trial students both placed at the top attorneys of the Sacramento mock trial. We had a CSF scholarship finalist and 2 students in FFA placed 3rd for best informed green hand contest. Also, our Biotech Academy is working tirelessly as they wrap up this year. They recently had 7 out of 10 research positions offered by the California Institute for Regenerative Cures at UC be offered to our Sheldon Biotech students. In addition to the incredible opportunity, each student will receive scholarship money. Biotech has also offered many guest speakers this term and virtual field trips. President Albiani, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, and Ms. Avalos, thank you for your time this evening. Sheldon has been trying to do their best with these unforeseen circumstances, and we hope that with the new year, we can offer more for our students.
Thank you very much, Mr. Murray, and to your fabulous students, our fabulous students. Our next item are resolutions. We'll start with the Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. Ms. Soriano, are there any public comments related to this item?
Madam Board President Albiani, there are no public comments related to this item.
I'd like to call on Mr. Cerruti to present.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening to you. Good evening to the remainder of the board. Good evening, Superintendent Hoffman and Ms. Avalos. Asian Pacific American Heritage Week began in 1978 when President Jimmy Carter signed a joint resolution designating this as an annual celebration. In May of 1990, the recognition was expanded further when President George H. Bush designated May to be Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. May was chosen to commemorate the immigration of the first Japanese to the United States on May 7th, 1843, and to mark the anniversary of the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad on May 10th, 1869. The majority of the workers who laid the tracks were Chinese immigrants. Throughout the year, the contributions of Americans with Pacific Rim heritage are presented in the regular curriculum. However, this special focus for 1 month serves as a reminder of the combined contributions of this group. The celebration of Asian Pacific American community is important now more than ever, given the rise of anti-Asian sentiment nationwide due to xenophobia and racism related to the global COVID-19 health pandemic. In support of this resolution, we will be offering a variety of events and activities which students and families and staff may engage in, including the danger of the model minority myth, an educator workshop scheduled for May 4th, Standing Up to Asian Hate, a webinar scheduled also for May 4th, Asian American and Pacific Islander AAPI Heritage Book Talk scheduled for May 12th, and AAPI Heritage Community Webinar that will include information about judo, martial arts, and the AAPI culture scheduled for May 13th. In addition, there will be opportunities to explore the resilience of many groups within the AAPI community and celebrate their contributions to the political, economic, and social development of the United States. And with that, I respectfully request the board give consideration to the adoption of Resolution 58, number 58, that designates May 2021 as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month.
Thank you, Mr. Cerruti. I'd like to call for a motion to adopt resolution number 58 that designates May 2021 as Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. I'd like to call for a motion. Would you like to move that motion, Mr. Yang?
Yes.
Thank
I'll
you. May I have
second
a second by Mr. Perez? Thank you, Mr. Yang. Would you like to speak?
Sure. as an Asian descent, I am overly touched by the resolution with the pandemic and all the crisis that has been occurring. I think that this resolution resonates human rights, human solidarity as an American community. And I deeply touched by it. So I hope that with this resolution, it will be a push for the Asian community and as an American community. We all come together, stand together, fight racism, fight hate, and stay united as American and make our community better and continue to help our kids to be successful in education and their life. So thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to call a roll call vote. Ms. Charis Espinoza? Aye. Mr. Fortuna?
Aye.
Ms. Jamerson? Aye. Dr. Martina Solir? Aye. Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Mr. Yang?
Aye.
And myself, it's unanimous.
Thank you, ma'am.
Our next item is a resolution for Day of the Teacher. Ms. Soriano, are there any public comments related to this item?
Madam Board President Albiani, there are no public comments related to this item.
Thank you. Mr. Singh, would you please present?
Good evening, Board President Albiani, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Avalos, staff and members of the public. It is an honor to present Resolution 61, 2021, recognizing May 4th, 2021 as the Day of the Teacher in the Elk Grove Unified School
Mr.
District.
Singh, can you get a little closer to the mic? I would like everyone to
Sorry.
hear.
Thousands of communities will take time out on Tuesday, May 4th, 2021 to honor their local educators and acknowledge the contributions they make to our lives. While it certainly takes many people to make a school succeed, National Teacher Day focuses on the teachers who work to make public schools great places for students to succeed in life. In support of this resolution, on May 4th, 2021, sites will have celebrations planned on this day for their teachers, and a message to all teachers will also be sent out from our central office. It is my humble request for the Elk Grove Unified School District Board to approve Resolution 61, recognizing May 4th, 2021 as Day of the Teacher in the Elk Grove Unified School District.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. I'd like to call for a motion to approve Resolution 61, recognizing May 4th, 2021 as Day of the Teacher in the Elk Grove Unified School District.
I move.
Moved by Mr. Fortuna, seconded by Ms. Nancy Charis Espinoza. A roll call vote.
We have discussion?
Would you like to say something? Of course.
Yes. Year in and year out, we have many wonderful, dedicated teachers who work hard for the benefit of our children and their families. And it's great that we can certainly pass a resolution recognizing Day of the Teacher. Maybe at some point in time, it will become at least the month of the teacher. But we have asked a lot of our teachers throughout the year, and they've stepped up to the plate to try to deliver. As we move forward, it is my hope that we will be responsive to teacher needs as we go forward into the 21-22 year school year, where we will once again be back at 5-day-a-week school.
All right, thank you very much. I would like to call a roll call vote. Mr. Fortuna,
Yes.
Ms. Jamerson. Aye. Dr. Martina Solir. Aye. Mr. Perez.
Aye.
Mr. Yang.
Aye.
Ms. Charis Espinoza. Aye. And I for myself. Thank you to all our teachers. Passes unanimously. Our next item is public comment. submitted today by 4:30. There are 19 regular public comments and 11 Zoom public comments. We have historically done 20 minutes of public comment. We are now in the practice of doing 40 minutes of public comment. We would start with the Zoom, as we always do, and move on to the regular. I believe there's a chance we could get through at 3 minutes. Would anybody like to do 2, or shall we see how we do with 3? Okay, we're just going to go through as far as we can with 3, and we'll start with the Zooms.
Okay, starting with Zooms, I'll just call out who will go in order. So we will start with Lorraine Pryor, then Carol Rogers, Exquisitive Hundley, Suzanne Lander, Jennifer Muir, Carol Kinzer, Pat Field, and then Brittany Kissinger for the public comment items not listed on the agenda.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
We're going to
Louder.
turn it up. Just one moment, please.
Do I need to do something on my end? Let's see.
Okay, can she turn it up on, are we asking her to turn it up on her side or just speak a little louder? Okay.
Can you hear me
use your
okay, or-
outside voice, Miss Pryor, and speak a little louder?
You said use my outside voice?
Yes, a little louder, please, ma'am.
A little louder, okay. How about now? Now's good?
It's not great, but I can hear you. We can
Huh,
hear you and
'cause
we're going to be super quiet.
I hear you and it's kind of distorted on my end.
Okay, thank you, Miss Pryor. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Lorraine Pryor with Black Youth Leadership Project, and I'm just gonna get right to it. Basically, the last meeting, I left very, very frustrated. I left frustrated because it was as if I was described to be a liar, like my public comments were not taken for what they were. And instead, it was told to you as the board that I had been contacted and spoken to, which I can assure you I would not have given specific public comment saying that I had not been contacted if in fact I had been contacted. So I wanted to put that on the record. Additionally, for me, it is not about my March 23rd comments. One, I don't understand. Although I said I would send an email, I work full-time for the legislature. I also run a staff of 13 people here at Black Youth Leadership Project. I travel back and forth. No one needed an email from me to respond to my commentary on March 23rd. The bottom line is, even after asking you, Madam Chair, to designate someone to get back to me, I still have not been contacted, and I believe I am owed an apology. It is not about March 23rd. It's about January 16th, 2018, January 24th, 2018, March 20th, 2018, March 6th, 2018, March 20th, 2018, April 3rd, 2018, May 1st, 2018, May 15th, 2018, June 12th, June 26th, July 24th, August 14th, September 4th, September 18th, October 2nd, November 3rd, and December 11th of 2018. I can go on. It's about January 15th, February 19th, March 19th, April 2nd, May 2nd, I'm sorry, May 7th, May 21st, June 11th, June 25th, August 13th, September 3rd, September 17th, October 1st, November 12th, and December 17th, which I spent my birthday in there talking to you about the disproportionate impact of discipline that you all are being allowed to permeate in this district. This is not about March 23rd. It's about all of these dates. It's about what you're doing. It's about your standing as #1 in the state for disproportionate discipline of Black children. And I'm tired of talking to y'all. I'm requesting action at this point. There's nothing else that needs to be said. The numbers are clear. I don't care how anybody tries to explain them away. You have a problem in your district with disproportionately disciplining Black children, especially Black boys. And it's about time that we put a spotlight on that we can focus on everybody when it's a problem with everybody, but right now it's a problem with Black students and it's on your hands.
Thank you, Ms. Breyer. Our next person.
Next person is Carol Rogers.
Good evening, Superintendent Hoffman and board members. My name is Carol Rogers. I am a resident of Elk Grove and a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. I am a gun violence survivor, a mother, and a grandmother. My granddaughter attended Elk Grove schools. I am concerned for the safety of all our children. I am here to respectfully request that the Elk Grove School District pass the resolution for Moms Demand Action to send letters home yearly to all parents to educate them on the need to safely store all firearms that may be present in the home. Moms Demand Action has a program called Be Smart that educates parents and others responsible for children on the importance of securing firearms with locked cables or in locked gun safes. We would like to present this program to as many parent groups and PTAs in the Elk Grove school system as possible. The S for the secure firearms unloaded in locked gun safes or with trigger locks in your homes and vehicles. The M is for model responsible behavior around firearms. The A is for ask about the presence of unsecured guns in other homes before sending children over for a play date. The R is for recognizing the risk of suicide for teens when a gun is easily accessible. The T is for tell your peers to be smart. Thank you for including this life-saving advice in your upcoming newsletter to parents. Please also pass the resolution to send a letter home to parents every year to educate them on the importance of storing guns locked in a gun safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Soriana, our next person.
The next person is Exquisitive Hundley.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Exquisitive Hundley, and I am a community member. I am with BYLP, and I would first like to say that publicly, Lorraine Pryor, our chief advocate, is owed an apology from your school board to address the need of the blatant lies that was told on our chief advocate. And I will also like to focus on the fact that we need to address at the district level the disproportionate discipline of our Black children, specifically our Black boys. Elk Grove is #1 in the state regarding the discipline of Black children. And to finish the dates that Lorraine has addressed your school board, it has been 2020, February the 1st of 2020, February the 18th of 2020, March the 3rd of 2020, and March the 23rd of 2021. So please, this needs to be addressed immediately, and we need to prioritize our Black children. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next comment.
The next comment comes from Suzanne Lander.
Ms. Landers?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was waiting for the pop-up to unmute. Good evening, Superintendent Hoffman and the Elk Grove Unified School District board members. My name is Suzanne Lander, and I am a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Safety in America. I am also a mom concerned for the safety of all of our children. I am here to respectfully request that the Elk Grove Unified School District send letters home yearly to all parents to educate them on the need to safely store all firearms that may be present in the home. As you may be aware, last year, California Education Superintendent Tony Thurmond sent a letter to all superintendents in California asking for such a letter to be sent. The statistics say it all. Every day in this country, one small child unintentionally shoots him or herself after finding an unsecured firearm in the home. Every day in this country, 2 older children, mainly teens, commit suicide using an unsecured firearm from their home or a relative's home. And finally, 80% of mass school shootings are done by students or former students whose weapon is an unsecured firearm they obtained from their home or a relative's home. Schools up and down California are adopting a school resolution on safe storage, similar to the one we emailed you several weeks ago. Los Angeles Unified School District did it a few years ago. They are the largest school district in the US. And San Diego Unified School District, the second largest school district in California, passed this resolution a few months ago, as have now many other smaller schools up and down California. The National PTA stands behind the safe storage of firearms to protect children. We need to educate parents that this is the law. I request that this be put on the agenda to discuss at an upcoming school board meeting as soon as possible. Thank you for everything you do to keep our children safe.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Next speaker is Jennifer Muir.
Ms. Muir?
Yes, there we go. Just found the pop-up. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Good evening, Superintendent Hoffman and board members. My name is Jennifer Muir. I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Safety in America. I'm here to respectfully request that the Elk Grove School District make it a priority to recognize gun safety as an issue and send a reminder home to all parents at least once a year to educate them on the need to safely store their guns and ammo. We must keep guns and ammo out of the hands of our children. Roughly a third of all U.S. homes with children have guns. What does that mean for the Elk Grove Unified School District? That works out to about 21,000 children here in Elk Grove who potentially live in a household with at least one gun that is stored loaded and unlocked. Nearly 350 children under the age of 18 gain access to a firearm across the USA and unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else. This would be traumatic for everyone if it happened within the Elk Grove Unified School District. As a mom of 2 grown boys, I am concerned for the safety of all of our children, not just my own. We all know what it's like to have curious little ones and moody teens in the house. They're not always the most rational beings. Let's help remind parents that the best prevention for unintentional gun incidents is keeping those guns locked up and loaded and unloaded with the ammo locked in a separate safe. Thank you very much for listening tonight.
Thank you. Our next speaker, Ms. Soriano.
The next speaker is Carol Kinzer.
Ms. Kinzer?
All right. Good evening, Superintendent Hoffman and fellow board members. My name is Carol Kinzer. I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Safety in America. As a long-term resident of Elk Grove and the mother of 2 daughters who attended Elk Grove schools, Joseph Sims, Toby Johnson, and Franklin High, I'm very invested in the Elk Grove community. I am here in strong support of the gun safety resolution proposed tonight because I am concerned for the safety of all our children in California. I respectfully request that the Elk Grove School District send letters home yearly to all parents to educate them on the need to safely store all firearms that may be present in the home. The bare facts are that the USA has 10 times the gun violence of other high-income democratic countries, and suicides account for more than half of all the gun-related deaths in America, which are usually impulsive and, of course, more deadly if a firearm is used. Plain and simple, having secured guns in a home will help decrease suicide deaths. Recent gun violence statistics for California shows that 52% of gun deaths are by suicide and 44% are by homicide. Also interesting to note is that 80% of shooters under the age of 18 who were involved with gunfire on school grounds obtain guns from their own home or their friend's home. And even more alarming is that 41% of teens living in gun-owning households report having easy access to guns in their homes. We know that throughout the US, millions of children and teens live in homes with unsecured guns. Furthermore, the 2015 to 2019 Everytown for Gun Safety Not an Accident Index has tracked more than 1,700 unintentional shootings by children, resulting in more than 600 deaths and more than 1,100 injuries. As a cardiac nurse of 30 years, I know that prevention through education is the best way to reduce heart disease. The COVID-19 pandemic has also taught us prevention is critical. Educating the public about wearing a mask, social distancing, and vaccines is and has saved many lives. Likewise, by being proactive and educating our Elk Grove families about the Be Smart Gun Safe Storage campaign, I believe we will increase school safety and gun safety awareness in our community and keep our Elk Grove community safe for all. Elk Grove Unified School District carries the distinction of being the 5th largest school district in California and the largest in Northern California. This resolution proposed by the Moms Demand Action will save lives because it educates and informs such a large number of parents. I believe the district has a duty to help protect our children and families in Elk Grove, and this gun safe storage resolution is a good start. Thus, I urge you to pass this resolution to help save lives. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker.
Next speaker is Pat Skeels.
Ms. Skeels. Oh, I'm sorry to say, we do not have the version that will support her comment. Our next speaker.
Next speaker is Brittany Kissinger.
Ms. Kissinger.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Kissinger, and I'm a kindergarten teacher at David Reese Elementary School. I just wanted to come and talk about my concern with the last minute change to use Illuminate to assess for third trimester. I just feel like this additional task is creating more stress, not only with scheduling, because right now all kindergarten teachers have one class on 3 different schedules. Some kids are full distance learning. Some kids are 2 days in person and 3 days distance. Some kids are 4 days in person, 1 day distance. At this time, it just feels like we're just adjusting to this new schedule change, and the logistics of scheduling more testing time with the new schedule feels like a huge stressor. Also, some of the testing will be taking place on Zoom, and some of the testing will take place in person. And when you think about it, is that even equitable? Like, some kids might perform better on Zoom versus in person, or vice versa. It just feels like, is there an unfair advantage in either setting? I mean, this does not seem equitable. And also on Zoom, and distance learning, not every child has an encouraging environment for learning at home. So testing just in general feels so unfair. And in person, it's different in kindergarten because not all of them have been to school yet. So right now they're just learning to be at school. And if I'm going to take a huge chunk of time out of that learning to test them, it doesn't seem fair. We're just still in these extenuating circumstances, continuing to learn a whole new way to teach, and teachers have adapted and accommodated and changed so much in 1 year. I cannot wrap my head around one more stressful task. I mean, I already am teaching my Zoom sessions in what feels like a closet, and then also teaching in person to kids right now who have never been to school. It just doesn't feel like the right time to do this. It doesn't feel right for kids. It doesn't feel right for teachers. It doesn't feel like we're taking care of the mental health of educators and students by adding this one more huge task, just so that we can get a baseline. and data together. I just wanted to voice my concern and speak on behalf of other kindergarten teachers who are feeling the same way. I appreciate you listening. And at the end of the day, I hope we all come together to do what is best for the students. Thank you.
Thank you. Have another speaker?
For Zoom, that is all for the public comments for items not on the agenda. There are other Zoom.
Excellent. Then could you please start reading the written comments that were submitted?
Yes, and I
Thank you.
just wanted to comment for Pat Skeels, the comment that was wished was to be able to address safe gun storage proposals.
Thank you.
The first comment comes from Cynthia Shallett. Good evening, Superintendent and board members. As an active volunteer for Moms Demand Action, I urge you to inform parents about the importance of locking and storing guns. Sorry, my computer jumped. I urge you to inform parents about the importance of locking and storing guns safely in the home. We must do something about the 350 children who die every year from unintended shootings. A letter, like the sample we have provided you, reminds parents how important this is and provides important information on how to store guns. In California, some cities such as Los Angeles and San Diego have already passed resolutions agreeing to send out safe gun storage letters to parents every year. But Elk Grove would be the first in Northern California if you pass this resolution soon. We especially appreciate it that your staff is putting information on secure gun storage in the upcoming security and safety newsletter from the security office. Thank you so much for your willingness to do more than offer thoughts and prayers to our gun violence epidemic. Cynthia Shallett. The next comment comes from Robert. Dear board, last month I put in a comment regarding light pollution from Folks Ranch School. Thank you to the board and Mr. Bill Harton of EGUSD for the prompt response on correcting the offending situation. I had to be persistent to get the issue addressed. There may be other impacted individuals that may not know how to raise an issue of light pollution. So to be clear, light pollution is pollution and trespass. The mantra of the board should not be that we are going to pollute and trespass, and then when someone complains, we will stop the pollution trespass. The mantra of the board should be not to pollute and trespass in the first instance. If one can see glare from the property line, it is an indication that lights are not properly installed. While analysis is required to determine applicability, provided is a link to the Elk Grove Municipal Code on lighting that has as its intent to limit nighttime glare. Links are also provided in the public comment sent in to the Kern County Code because it has good illustrations, and the San Bernardino Land Use Services Division draft report on light trespass from February 2021 as informative. Recommended is that the board provide any and all resources to EGUSD to inspect and adjust lighting as needed to prevent or abate light pollution. A metrics progress report posted on the EGUSD website would be nice to keep the public informed. Thank you. The links are included. The next comment is anonymous. The April 6th Board of Trustees meeting of the Elk Grove Unified School District hit a new low. Let's review the highlights. Number one, once again, there was an attempt to silence constituent voice by removing the ability to provide written comments. If it weren't for an observant member of the Parent Coalition getting the ability for written comment back just 24 hours prior to the board meeting, 49 voices would have been silenced. Of course, we don't know how many tried to comment and couldn't prior to restoration, although that seems to be fine with the board president since there's a comment at every meeting about how long the meeting is going to take. It's worth reminding all the trustees that you volunteered for this role. If working on behalf of students is too much, feel free to resign at any point. Number 2, although a motion was made by Ms. Chaires Espinosa and approved unanimously by all the trustees to agendize a discussion of a return to 5-day per week school prior to the end of the current school year, it wasn't on the agenda. As we are already in the final quarter of this school year, why wasn't this time-critical item agendized immediately? Why did Ms. Chaires Espinosa remain silent and not demand to know the status of her item? Why didn't the board president make any remarks on why it wasn't on the agenda? I'm sure there will be some arm-waving excuse that it can't be discussed due to the relationship with labor partners, which continues to be the priority over kids. At the end of the day, this is just a big game of Gavin, may I? You are just going to wait until Gavin tells you what to do. Total lack of leadership. Number 3, the most egregious behavior, though, is reserved for the superintendent. He is straight up and flat out lied about having a conversation with a parent constituent. There will be an apology because it was demanded, but there's little confidence fundamental behavior will change since this administration has a history of miscommunication, misrepresentation, twisting of the facts, and manipulation. How can we trust anything that he says going forward? Frankly, it's time for this superintendent to unconditionally resign. The next comment is anonymous. I'm a sophomore at Franklin High. I didn't want to give my name because I'm afraid that comments might be held against me. Anyway, here goes. I saw the district's April 4th tweet that said, "We are committed to empowering our young people by giving them the educational resources they need by helping them have a voice." If that's true, when can we go back to real school? I've been watching your meetings and don't understand how putting a time limit on comments is supposed to help us have a voice. Thank you for your time. The next comment comes from Julia Butts. Please extend the 4-day in-person learning model to 5 days. There is no valid reason that students should not attend school in person on Mondays. Being able to be back in the classroom with students and then going back to teaching remotely has just reaffirmed how ineffective the teaching and learning process is over Zoom. My students spent the first 15 minutes of Monday morning telling me how disappointed they were they had to be back on Zoom instead of in the classroom. Every minute of instruction counts, and it should be in person whenever possible. Send the students back to school on Mondays for the remainder of the year. The next comment comes from Mark Graham. Good evening, Board of Education members and staff. Mark Graham in Elk Grove. Did you know the medical definition for microwave sickness, according to Merriam-Webster Dictionary, is a condition of impaired health first reported in the Russian medical literature that is characterized by headaches, anxiety, sleep disturbances, fatigue, and difficulty in concentrating, and by changes in the cardiovascular and central nervous systems, and that it is held to be caused by prolonged exposure to low-intensity microwave radiation. Did you know the short-term effects of microwave radiation exposure are insomnia, headaches, nose, ear bleeds, skin tingling, heating, flushing, rashes, pain, fatigue, nausea, irregular heartbeats, cognitive impairment, behavior issues, learning disabilities, anger, anxiety, depression, suicidal ideation, and more? Did you know it is a scientific fact that long-term exposure to microwave radiation causes biological effects that include developmental delays and neurological effects such as depression, suicide, violence, anxiety, autism, addiction, behavioral issues, heart episodes, infertility, ADD, ADHD, dementia, Alzheimer's, and cancer? Did you know that there are thousands of peer-reviewed studies dating as far back as 1969 supporting these findings? Did you know children are more at risk due to thinner, softer craniums and bones, greater absorption of RF radiation into their brains, eyes, and bone marrow, and their developing immune, neurological, and reproductive systems? Did you know that 1 in 3 children will become diabetic? Did you know that the closer you live to a cell tower, the higher your blood glucose? Did you know the way you create a model of diabetes in lab rats is by exposing them to 2.4 gigahertz? Did you know there is an epidemic of mental health, such as suicide, violence, and opioid addiction? Did you know that colon cancer and rectal cancer are occurring at an increasing rate among young and middle-aged adults throughout the US? And scientists suspect it is from keeping cell phones in their pockets. Our question is, why are school officials closing their eyes to the overwhelming evidence of harm to our children in our schools? Respectfully, Mark Graham. The next comment comes from Lisa Stanley. I am with Black Youth Leadership Project, and I am profoundly disgusted with the complete disregard of our Black students' mistreatment by the Elk Grove School District. Black students are targeted, humiliated, overseen, and disciplined at astronomical rates. To be exact, number 1 in the state. The ongoing abuse by your staff is gross negligence, and with schools reopening, we will not tolerate this behavior. We will not subject our babies to the ignorance and bias of teachers, administrators, and staff, and we demand a plan to address these statistics now. We demand the board use the CARES Act funds to make this happen. Your staff should possess adequate competency skills in and beyond the classroom, and yet they are perpetuating racial harm on a daily basis. The district's utter inability to acknowledge and address these issues years ago is the sole responsibility of each one of the school board members. When you look in the mirror, your inaction and silence contributed from 3rd to 1st place in the recent study. Don't suspend our future. In a time of heightened racial tensions, Black men and children are being murdered in the streets in the middle of a global pandemic. Your time to act is long overdue. You are in these seats to address the constituents' concerns. Well, here is your time. We will continue to show up, speak out, and against the blatant racism that goes on in your campuses. Furthermore, Mr. Hoffman owes my colleague Lorraine Pryor and all of BYLP an apology for the lies he spoke at the April 6th school board meeting. No one from his office has been in contact with her regarding her public comments over the last 3 years regarding disproportionate discipline rates in the school district. I am appalled at what I heard. This is completely unacceptable and must be addressed today. The next comment comes from Kristen Mullard. Please consider the impact to our students if K-1 teachers are required to complete one-to-one assessments in our current instructional model. The next comment comes from Minerva Mandap. Dear Superintendent Hoffman and board members, my name is Minerva Mandap. I am a parent of one child. The child's name is included in the public comment at Elliott Ranch Elementary School and one that recently graduated from Cosumnes Oaks High School. I'm writing to you today because I am concerned for the safety of all our children in Elk Grove. I want to respectfully request that the Elk Grove School District send letters home yearly to all parents to educate them on the need to safely store all firearms that may be present in the home per the resolution put forth by the Moms Demand Action organization. An estimated 13 million American households with children under the age of 18 contain at least one gun, and approximately 4.6 children live in a household with at least one gun that is stored and unlocked. Every year, 350 children under the age of 18 gain access to a firearm and unintentionally shoot themselves or someone else. An overwhelming majority of unintended shootings by children could have been prevented had the gun been stored securely. As an oncology RN at Sutter General Hospital, I regularly have to deal with life and death issues, which is an unexpected outcome working on a cancer unit, which is an unexpected outcome working on the cancer unit. But I know that gun violence in America is becoming way too frequent, and it is at an epidemic level. And I feel this resolution proposed would have a positive outcome in preventing deaths for our children, our young children in our Elk Grove community. It's better to be proactive to prevent further gun catastrophe. Thank you, Minerva Mandap, Elk Grove resident and mom. The next comment is anonymous. I am writing today in regards to the newly mandated Illuminate testing for K through 2. As a parent of both a second grader and a kindergartner in EGUSD, I am frustrated that my children are going to be subjected to yet another new format of testing at the end of the year. This year has been filled with change. While children are resilient, some kids, like my second grader, worry by nature. To throw another new test at them at the end of the year is just stressful for students. Teachers should be able to give the same test they've been using all year long, such as the BPST, and let that remain the one constant thing in their education. While I understand a common baseline for student data is necessary, I do not feel this is the right time to administer a mandatory district test. We all know that in the fall, the new teacher is going to give a diagnostic assessments for the beginning of the year data. Why not wait and give these mandatory assessments then? The data will be far more accurate, and it will give both students and teachers time to take a break in what has been an incredibly stressful year. The next comment comes from Amy Morgan Lopez. The phrase of 2020-2021 school year has definitely been show grace. However, this is one thing that has not been shown to our educators. Teachers have been one of the only professions that have completely transformed the way they perform their jobs. With innovation and flexibility, teachers have continued to provide quality education, attended to the social and emotional needs of their students, and have accommodated decisions made by others, people not in the trenches with them. At the beginning of this school year, the EGUSD polled the community asking for their priorities. Social emotional needs were ranked on the top concern for families. Yet, this recent decision to proceed with state accountability testing and standardizing K through 2 assessments has shown that EGUSD's priority is to determine what has been learned this year in the middle of a global crisis. This is in direct contrast to what EGUSD claimed would be their focus for the 2020-2021 school year, which was SEL. Students, families, and educators have experienced trauma this year. Although I understand the need to determine the effects the loss of instructional time has had on students, I would like to ask if the board has considered the fairness of assessing students while they are still experiencing ongoing trauma. I would like to ask that the board consider giving grace to its students and educators, at least in these last 5 weeks of school, rather than rushing through assessing students in these final weeks. Give grace and allow teachers to maximize the limited instructional time they have left. Standardized entry assessments would provide the baseline needed to determine instructional growth after interventions, but better than that, staying end of the year assessments would offer the often touted grace to our educators and students who deserve it very much. The next comment comes from Ann Spencer. This letter is being submitted in the form of written comment because those who participate in the meetings and provide telephonic comments are not able to re-access the meeting upon completion of their statements. It has been over 6 months since parents have repeatedly asked to be included in the process of reopening our schools. Now, parents are being offered a virtual facilitated listening session and breakout rooms. We were initially told the meeting would be tomorrow evening. Last week, we received an email asking for us to choose between 4 meeting choices, all of which fall within typical working day hours. The system asked for us to rank our preferences 1 through 4, including one option of I cannot attend. I made my selections, but received no notice of confirmation or an email as to which session I may attend. Yesterday, I received 2 more notifications asking me to make my selections. I responded yet again. It is now the day before the meetings. I have not received 0 communication. This hardly feels like a true intent of inclusion. At this late date, and the current offering of meeting hours, it is unlikely that I will actually be able to attend since I have a job which requires me to be present and in person. Further, if parents do not attend, we may once again be accused of not availing ourselves of the opportunity to participate. It is your intent to include parents as representatives of their children, your students. If so, then a true committee meeting should be held during the evening hours when parents are able to attend. I look forward to an additional meeting time being offered. The time is ticking away on this school year. I implore you, our children need to be in the classroom 5 full days a week with transportation offered to students who are unable to get there. The 2 or 4 mornings a week currently being offered is not adequate to provide the academic and social growth our children's developing minds need. The 34% return to in-person instruction rate should alarm you. Where are the rest of your students? Are their academic and social needs being met? Answer these questions truthfully and get our kids back to school. The next comment is anonymous. This is a collaborative comment from our kindergarten grade level in regards to the mandatory K-12 Illuminate testing. Professionally speaking, our time would be better used meeting students' academic and social emotional needs in the 120 minutes of in-person learning. Because our numbers of in-person learners are so high on our campus, this 30-minute one-on-one test does not allow for an equitable distribution of our instruction time. We understand the desire to secure as much funding as possible. However, administering this assessment at this point in time takes away from the short amount of time we have with our students, both daily and for the rest of the year. While our goal to create independent learners, having 20+ kids in the classroom, forces this test to be given outside the boundaries of our contract. It is just not physically feasible to expect us or the instructional coaches to complete this last-minute request within the new time parameters. This is causing undue stress on all parties involved. The assessment was advertised as optional up until last week, so many teachers did not feel confident or have had ample time to familiarize themselves with this assessment and yet are now forced to give it very little notice. We have been bombarded with change in the last 2 months. First, we adapted to one of the most arduous schedules on more than one occasion, but now we are forced on yet another change. It is within your power to alleviate this undue stress and offer grace for your employees, teachers, and kids alike. We are asking for a reprieve. Please consider our social and emotional needs over funding.
Thank you, Ms. Soriano. That's our 40 minutes.
Great.
Thank you. Our next item is our consent agenda. Ms. Soriano, are there any public comments related to the consent agenda?
Madam Board President Albiani, there are no public comments related to the consent agenda.
Okay, I'd like to call for a motion to approve items 1 through 20 on the consent agenda. Do I have a second?
I request item 14 be removed.
Ms. Charis Espinoza, would you amend your motion? You're not on the mic. Can we get our microphone when we have a chance? Please go ahead, just loudly. Can you say test?
Yep, testing. Madam Chair, for the record, I'd like to move the consent agenda minus item 14.
Thank you. We have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a first by Ms. Charis Espinoza, second by Ms. Jamerson. Take a vote on that. Ms. Jamerson?
Aye.
Dr. Martinez Salier?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Mr. Yang?
Aye.
Ms. Charis Espinoza?
Aye.
Mr. Fortuna?
Aye.
And aye. We're on item 14 then. Mr. Fortuna, you had a comment?
Yes. Item number 14 is for the board's approval to purchase 2 trucks for safety and security. I submitted a question which was simply, where we being asked to approve a purchase that has already been made. And I received no response with respect to that question. But I want to go into this a little bit further. 6 years ago, when Dr. Ladd was superintendent of the district, a request was brought to the board to purchase 2 Tahoes, 4-wheel drive, very expensive. And the board asked questions with respect to need on the basis that we're a flatland district. We don't have floods to deal with. We don't transport suspected criminals. So other than approving a status symbol for our police at that time, what was the need? And instead of the board receiving responses, the request was just withdrawn by the superintendent. Several months ago, on the consent agenda was what appeared to be the approval of 2 vehicles. The board asked questions about that, and the board was told, oh, we're not purchasing anything. We just want to be in a position to be on a contract. So at a point in time when we are going to need to purchase vehicles, we'll be in a position to take advantage of bidding through a larger entity. Another question was asked, does that mean that when you might be in a position to want to purchase vehicles, it will be brought back to the board for discussion before the purchase? And the response was, well, yeah, of course, yes. Well, guess what? We're in a situation, once again, where a large expenditure, approximately $170,000, is being made with no discussion by the board. The board received a rationale. To me, the rationale for the purchase is just a justification to support an expected outcome. The 2 trucks that have been purchased are crew cab, gas guzzling vehicles. The board didn't get a chance to discuss whether or not the duties and responsibilities of safety and security could be met with a compact. The board recently took advantage of programs to buy electric buses and went on and on and on about how that was a good decision that was not only healthy for the environment, it was also put us in a position to save dollars. We're not buying gasoline. In addition to not being able to talk about the size of vehicle needed, we didn't get a chance to talk about whether we wanted a fuel efficient vehicle. To me, this raises an issue again about process. Are we a rubber stamp board? Or are we a board that has the full opportunity to ask questions about the validity of a purchase before large purchases are made? We were given many reasons why the trucks are important. Again, we had no discussion. One was, well, you know, we had to deliver PPEs this year and the truck would be easier. And my question there is, so like, where's warehouse services? If safety and security are delivering product, what is warehouse services doing? I think what happens is that when questioned about the validity of a decision, that things get thrown on the table without perhaps thinking them through, and you end up getting yourself in more trouble than you would otherwise. So I have a problem with the purchase and have no further comments.
Thank you. Ms. Chair Espinoza.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I welcome questions about process all the time. We know from our CSBA training that that's absolutely the role of the board. But just for the edification of our new members and members of the public, there exists something called delegated authority, which means this board delegates to the superintendent and to his or her designees the ability to spend money up until a certain threshold. And the reason for that is because we're a big organization, and we know from our professional development and from research on the habits of highly effective school boards that we are more valuable, our time is more valuable when spent on student achievement, on things like the resources we're providing to students in coming out of this pandemic, on addressing disproportionality in our student discipline, than when we are dipping out of the policy level and into the administrative level. So for me personally, I would not wish this board to spend its time, selecting the make and model of vehicles that are purchased. I'm perfectly happy to delegate that within our existing delegated authority guidelines. Some of the issues that were raised, I had questions about some of those too, and they were discussed. So, would we need the type of vehicle that can carry passengers? I, for one, would prefer, if ever our students need to be transported by safety and security, that they can be transported by our own staff and that we don't have to ask law enforcement officers to transport students. I'll choose that every single time. I have no problem with our staff having vehicles for extended capacity. In this past year, we have especially used safety and security staff to flex, to have to, for example, deliver laptops and computers across the district. So I think vehicles of this nature do provide the flexibility that we need. Other things like, are they gas guzzlers? Absolutely. My mind went to, hey, can we do this with a hybrid? Can we do this with something else? But at the end of the day, I don't think that that's where board time should be spent. So just with respect to the procedural question, I don't find anything inappropriate about this. And I move that the item be adopted.
I need to respond.
Mr. Perez.
Yes, after I review the rationale, I was very upset coming from a labor background. Other examples include managing traffic flow and closure at district sites for various emergencies and events. That's what our security is about. But when it comes to this third paragraph, second sentence, this has been necessary to facilitate the distribution of Chromebooks, textbooks, et cetera, due to the distance learning model and COVID-19 concerns. That's way out of working out of your class assignment. Like Mr. Forcina said, we have individuals that do that within our facilities. What department did you mention that was responsible for, Mr. Forcina? Warehouse. They are not delivery service for Elk Grove Unified School District. So that is no justification for purchasing these big vehicles. If anything, we could possibly buy 2 other vehicles with that amount of money. And besides, can you please review our policy on spending items more than what, 100,000? What was our current policy that board has to make decisions on? Can you review that for me, please? Who would have?
When you look at our online agenda, Mr. Perez, there are items on that that do not reach the threshold of board approval. We delegate an amount to the staff. I was trying to look on that list to see what the highest number I could find. I do not know it off the top of my head. Does anybody, Ms. Hayes? Oh, Ms. Hayes.
Any of our staff have that?
Of course, we can get it. It wasn't brought up ahead of time, so it's a little bit putting on the staff on the spot. But this number falls below it.
But
I
the
will tell
bottom
you that.
line,
Is you
we
don't think
should have
they
had
should-
some, a vote and discussion on this. This is an issue that, like Mr. Forcina said, it's an ongoing issue, and they're making decisions on these vehicles without our consent.
Okay.
These
Mr.
have not been purchased yet. And the explanation of why we were making a transition from standard vehicles to the pickup truck style was part of the report that was shared with the board. So that the idea that we're trying to move away from the classic sedan that is associated with law enforcement and going to a vehicle that does not have that same view when it rolls up like a Explorer does currently, like a vehicle right now that's coming to mind with regards to the sedan. The other reality is if you look at the Elk Grove City Police Department, their community vehicles are pickup trucks. And part of the reason behind that is because you can throw things in the back of the truck, such as cones, traffic diversion signs, those kinds of things when they're needed in different places. The idea that our safety and security team stepped into the space this year without them stepping into the space this year to deliver Chromebooks across the district, it would not have happened. Warehouse staff was inundated with PPE and other materials that were coming through in their normal setting. And because we had the flexibility within our safety and security team, that work got done. And I appreciate their efforts of stepping outside of their normal job duties to meet the needs of our kids, just like everybody else has done this year throughout the pandemic. So to make the rationale that we're not going to do these vehicles because people were doing something above and beyond their job, I just know that's what we want.
Mr. Pritchett, you want to say something else?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like the issue is clear now. It's getting money as people try to divert what the issues are. The fact that they stepped up and did something on a one-time basis is not a rationale for an ongoing purchase of vehicle. It was a one-time thing. But in difference to Mrs. Espinoza over here, I suppose I take my fiduciary responsibility for budget very seriously, and I consider $170,000 to be a heck of a lot of money.
As do I.
And I think that what we need to do as a board is revisit the authority we've given and determine the actual amount of money that we are comfortable with allowing the superintendent or his designee to move forward on with purchases. I think that's a legitimate request. It'll be what the board decides it'll be based on everyone's input. But I think that is a very appropriate action for us to take.
Let me start by getting that information out to the board this week. We'll get that information out to everybody. I would like to say, I've been on the board for 6 years and I've never discussed purchasing a vehicle or had a debate on purchasing a vehicle or a bus. We have a special trailer that we have prepared in case of a horrific event in our district. And this a truck will let us pull it to an event. We recently put 3 vehicles to surplus with mileages over 100,000 miles, manufactured in 2002, 2003, and 2005. I see no, I appreciate the fact that our staff is in the best position to know what are the needs in our district. And we give them a large budget. And if they act within the budget, I feel that is their duty and job. So I personally have no problem approving this purchase. Nancy has made a motion. I will second it. We'll have a roll call vote on item number 14.
So you're
Did
saying
someone else want to talk?
we won't revisit this?
I said I will send out information about the spending limits and get that to you. And then if you'd like to bring it up in a future meeting, you feel free.
Thank you.
Ms. Jamerson? Aye. Thank you. Dr. Martinez Salier? Aye. Mr. Perez? No. Mr. Yang?
Aye.
Ms. Charis Espinoza? Aye. Mr. Fortuna?
No.
And aye. Thank you. Our next item is a report. Series 2021 bonds, issuance and sale of general obligation bonds, election of 2016, Series 2021 of Elk Grove Unified School District in the aggregate principal amount of $140,500,000. Ms. Soriano, are there any public comments related to this item?
Madam Board President Albiani, there are no public comments related to this.
Thank you. Mr. Pierce.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman and Ms. Avalos. The board will recall that on March 23rd, 2021, you approved Resolution 54, 2020-2021, authorizing the sale of Measure M bonds, specifically the third series. Pursuant to that resolution, the district conducted the bond sale on April 6th. I would like to thank Mr. Fortuna, Mrs. Charis Espinoza, and Mr. Yang for being our special guests on the day of the sale. Thank you again for that. Tonight, we have Ms. Lori Ranieri and Mr. Matt Calker with us. I see board members looking around. We're going to do something very unique tonight. They're joining us via Zoom, and I will be running the presentation here tonight, which the board and the members of the public can see. Before I turn it over to Lori, I just would like to thank her and her firm. I know the board members that were in attendance that day saw their diligence at work. I can tell the board and the members of the community that in my 20+ year career of selling bonds, this was by far the most successful and the most favorable bond sale that I've experienced. And that is in large part due to Ms. Ranieri and her firm at Government Financial Strategies. I'm trusting that Ms. Ranieri can hear me. And if Lori, you can, if you'd please proceed, I will run the presentation from my end.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for having us. And because of the late hour, we're actually going to take advantage of Mr. Colker's specific expertise in getting us through things quickly. So I am going to turn it over to Mr. Matt Colker, Client Services Director of Government Financial Strategies.
Thank you, Lori. So go on to the next slide, Rob. So just a brief agenda, going to go through the process and then what the results were. And as you're probably all familiar with, we have quite a bit in the for reference section. If there's any questions or if you just want something fun to read tonight. So next slide. As with the past sales, the district has been diligent in utilizing Government Finance Officers Association's best practices. And we're highlighting a few of them that were referenced a little bit more so than others on this slide that helped bring about the successful sale and get funds for projects. So next slide. So back when we started with Measure M, shortly before we sold the first series, we decided to go with 2 ratings from Moody's and Fitch. Fitch had started a new program where you can get a legal opinion, and it allowed you to get a AAA rating, which in our opinion, all rating agencies should be pretty much given AAA to school district bonds, but that's a different story. So it's highlighting that Moody's has maintained a AA rating for the district. highlighting, good management practices, local economy, and whatnot, and has maintained that. And Fitch once again gave it AAA, and due to these good ratings, opted not to get bond insurance. So this helps saves on the cost. So next slide. So this is showing a benchmark index rate for interest rates. So showing where it was back when we were originally planning for Measure M. It was at 3.18%. And then as we went and issued the first two series, you can see it was going up all the way up to 4.23% for the second series back in 2019. And then we had you can start seeing the sharp decline afterwards, and then some volatility back when COVID first hit, and it's kind of maintained a lower rating. And shortly before we had to sell, we saw a little spike upwards, but it was still, far below where it was when we planned Measure M, which is favorable for the district. So that it was at 2.34% and on a slight downward trend at that time. Next slide. This is highlighting that we are very conservative in our planning. So when we were planning for Measure M, we took what the rates were at that time and assumed that the volatility would be on the upside. So this allows us a lot of flexibility as far as if conditions get bad, we're good to go. We can still implement the Measure M as planned. And then if it comes in close to what we expect or better, then we can take advantage of the benefits that provides. And this can show that if you look at the blue and green, the little dash lines at the top are showing what our original plans had assumed. And then you can see the little diamonds are showing what the actual results were for those. And the same with the red is showing what we had for the most recent series. So you can see that as we look further out, we assume even more volatility in market and the rates. So you can see that as we go up, they each go a little bit increase each time. But then with the market being down and good competitive sale, we came in quite a bit lower this time than we did in the past two sales. So that's very beneficial. Next slide. So as Rob mentioned, the sales on April 6th, and we appreciate having good attendance, and it's always nice to have interested people show up and ask a lot of good questions. So we had the bids received by 9:05 a.m. For a par amount of 140.5 million. That was the targeted amount in order to get the proceeds necessary to meet the expected expenditures that Sue has provided us with. And we utilize basically every resource out there to get the word out. Avia, which traditionally has been a printer of all the legal documents that come out, also has a service where they provide a lot of documents ahead of time. So that was the first step. And then the actual bidding platform is another source for potential bidders to find out about the bond sale. And then the bond buyer, which is a kind of like the Wall Street Journal for our industry, we published in there. And so get as many people out there aware that we're selling bonds. We keep the limitations as minimal as possible and very flexible parameters. And the bottom line is more competition we have generally results in better results for the district. Next slide. And you can see that we had 9 bidders from all over. This indicates where their office was located for the actual bid. So as you probably recognize a few of the names, that they are nationwide banks, so that doesn't mean they only operate in that state. Generally speaking, the main purchasers of the bonds at the end were going to be probably in California or in a state that does not have a state income tax. But you can see that the offices all over the place were interested in bidding on these bonds. Next slide. So on this slide is showing the actual bids, and you can see that Merrill once again won on Measure M bonds. They were the winner in the first 2 series, and they came in strong on this series as well at a rate of just about 2.08%, and quite a bit lower than the highest bid, which was 2.22%. Going into the sale, based on the market at the time, we were actually thinking that we were probably going to be somewhere in the 2.2 to 2.28%. So you're kind of in the last place bid range. So you can see that competition helped push the rates down and to get a very solid bid, which the actual dollar difference, is almost $2.7 million between the first and last place bid. So very solid performance. Next slide. So this clearly has a lot going on in it, and this is showing that overall through the continuing refinements to the bond plan, that we've accelerated issuing of bonds to meet project needs than what we had originally planned. So that's what the left side is showing, that we're originally looking at 5 series. Right now, we've issued 3 series, and depending on project needs, we can get all the bonds issued in 4 series. That helps save on cost of issuance, gets money in the bank sooner, so you can spend it without the inflation costs of construction, all those fun things, in addition to additional proceeds. And on the right is showing the proceeds increase overall. So right now we're looking with actual sales and our projections for the final series to be a little over $13.5 million more for projects. So, and the money should have been deposited in the bank today. So we're good to go to get started on everything. Next slide. This one is showing that we're actually came in under cost. So on the left side is showing what we're expecting pre-election. You can see the big orange bar at the top. That was at the time, the 5th series that we're no longer needed. So on the right side, you can see that some of them are a little bit bigger than what we were planning originally, but that's because we issued larger amounts. So that service was a little bit higher, but the overall result is that we're currently looking at about $250 million less. That includes projections for the final series. So if we have another great sale like we did for this recent one, then that number could get even better. But based off our conservative estimates, we're looking at a total of just under $250 million less that taxpayers will be repaying. And this is before any refinancings or any other improvements to the bond plan. Next slide. So what does this mean to taxpayers? We're looking at maintaining, I think it's right around $35, $36 range for the next several years. And then we've improved it such that we've chopped 3 years off the total years of taxation. So we're going to end taxation earlier. And this is without doing any further improvements to the bond plan, such as refinancing. And those last few years are from the first couple of series is why we have those smaller amounts. We're able to issue this series and project to issue the remaining bonds in a shorter time frame, so shorter duration, so that when the refinancing opportunities come up, we can look at shortening the term overall and make it more efficient and cheaper for taxpayers, or less costly to taxpayers, and get the bonds paid off sooner, which generally people like. So that's the goal. But as those opportunities come up, that would obviously discuss with Rob and his team, and then bring it to the board for further discussion. But that's kind of where we're sitting at right now. Next slide. So in conclusion, we have overall lower debt service, which results in less taxes and getting more proceeds for projects, and which are, every extra dollar you get to do more projects is always nice, and getting the money in earlier so that we can have the more bang for your buck, so to speak, is an added benefit. So next slide. It's just our thank you slide, and for that, unless Lori has any additional comments, I'll turn it back over to you, Rob, see if there's any questions.
All right. Thank you very much.
We want to say thank you. We appreciate being part of the team. It's really an honor to be part of the Elk Grove team.
Thank you, Lori. And I just wanted to confirm one of the comments Matt said. We did get the official email today that the bond sale officially closed. All the funds have been wired to the county treasury, and we will be off and running with additional improvements to our schools.
All right.
Any questions?
If we had any questions or comments, Dr. Martinez-Soler?
Well, just thank you for their work and the information.
Mr. Perez?
Thank you for the report. No questions.
Mr. Yang?
Thank you for the report. Excellent job.
Thank you. Ms. Cheris Espinoza?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just another thank you to the team, all involved, both here in the district and those externally who guided us through this. We really were so well poised to take advantage of some good fortune, with the rates dipping right in the days before we had to close this sale. And it was just an extraordinarily good outcome as a result of all that work that was laid. And I highly encourage you colleagues to join next time this happens, especially those of you who like math, or maybe particularly those of you who don't. It was a really good example of why mathematics matters. And I'm so pleased that we have all these people who are so great at number crunching to make sure that we stretch all of the dollars that folks entrust us with. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fortuna?
Thank you. Lori, first of all, thank you for encouraging our attendance. That was really a fulfilling morning. And thank you for sharing your bright staff with us. And Lori, I've said this before. For me, I can't say it enough times. One, I will never get tired of listening to you share your knowledge. But probably more importantly, I will never get tired of you sharing your incredible humor with us. You are a funny person. Thanks, Lori.
Thank you. Ms. Jamerson?
Thank you so much. No questions.
All right. I have no questions as well. Whoever wished, we wish that a financial report would be live as much as we do today. It's kind of funny. So we do miss you. I'd like to call for a 5-minute break and then we'll, so the next group can get set up. We'll have the race and educational equity report next. We can get back to our seats, please. Mr. Yang and Mr. Perez. Mr. Perez is on the phone. You're number one. All right, start the race and educational equity report. Ms. Soriano, are there any public comments related to this item?
Yes, Madam Board President Albiani, there are 3 desired Zoom public comments. And the 3 submitted were from Lorraine Pryor, Joel Boyd, and David Famavong.
All right, if we can start with Ms. Pryor. Yes, 3 minutes. Miss. Oh, he'll do the timer on the computer. Thank you. Are there any written comments, just for my knowledge?
I'm going to double check, but it doesn't look as.
Okay, thank you. We're ready, Ms. Pryor.
Yeah, I was hoping to hear the report first and then I could give a comment after the report. Can I hear the report first?
We always take them first.
I wanted to hear what was going to be said before I gave commentary. I thought
Okay.
that's how that goes. So can I
That
be
is
pushed
not our
to the
usual
bottom?
order, but yes, I am happy to do that.
Thank you very much.
Not a problem. Would our next person like to speak or wait as well? Ms. Boyd, was it?
Correct. Joel Boyd.
Oh, Mr. Boyd?
Yes, this is Joel Boyd. I'll go ahead and make my comments now. And I just hope before I start my comments, I just want to make sure that I'm able to get back into the meeting, because the last couple of meetings that I made comments, I was kicked out and I couldn't hear. And I'm really interested in hearing Mr. Cerruti's presentation.
Mr. May, could you give us some advice, please? You should just sign back in the same way you did initially.
Okay, I know that, you say that's how it's supposed to work, but it doesn't work. I'm just being very transparent that we've been kicked out of the meetings after our comments. Now, if I can make a recommendation, I will stick to less than my 3 minutes. If you can just not hit the button and sign me out, I promise not to go over my 3-minute allotment. I believe what I have to say is probably less than that. I'm just really interested in engage in this conversation with Mr. Cerruti. So I won't go over to 3 minutes. I just don't want to be kicked out of the meeting and then I can't participate.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay.
Right? Can we do that? The clock doesn't kick them out, does it, Mr. May? No, okay. Yes, Mr. Boyd, we can do that. Not a
Okay.
problem.
Okay, thank you very much for making that accommodations. For your educational equity strategic plan, there's 6 foundational elements that you've been going over for multiple meetings. And it appears that, you're just checking the boxes because we're not really seeing enough substantive work is really coming out, of this education equity strategic plan. As we've been discussing it in many board meetings, there's a lot of issues that really need to be addressed as it relates to equity inclusion. And, I'm really coming here for this meeting to really try to create a platform to where we can have some discussions and really start the dialogue about this support the suspension of Black students in Elk Grove School District. This is a problem, and we really need to come to some sort of forum to really solve this issue. If we need to create community review boards to review the disciplinary actions, to help develop some preventative plans, or something needs to be done. And because this is a very serious matter, and I'm really here to really begin to start dialogue to come up with some solutions. There's 5 quick points that I want to go over that I think that we need to really address as a equity and inclusion program. Is 1, obviously the disproportionate suspensions of Black youths in Elk Grove school districts. Also, the restorative circles, that is a good idea, but it really has to be done right. Students are not really safe in that environment. So I think the intentions by the school board are good, but really need to have the professionals to make this really worthwhile. The higher recruitment intention, number two, higher recruitment intention of Black teachers and administrators. The fiasco that happened with the racism ad, I won't really rehash that again, but obviously you don't have the right people in place to really address that. So we really need to address the higher recruitment and retention. Ethics studies is another bullet point that needs to happen. Funding of the diversity and inclusion program that really needs to be talked about. And lastly, unconscious bias training for teachers and administrators. There's 67% of the teachers in Elk Grove Unified School District are white. You have a 18% white population of students, and 11% Black population, and 2% of the teachers, are Black. So we really need to create some sort of platform to discuss these issues. The issues have been brought to the attention for a very long time. Lastly, I do want to say Lorraine Pryor is a pillar in the African-American community, and the school board needs to find a way to put it on record that she was misrepresented. And I believe that will be an olive branch to really start this process. So thank you for your time. Please do not kick me out of the meeting because I would like to listen to the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Boyd. And are we at a third person?
Yes, the third person. That was David Famabong. And that is all the public comments that we would.
Okay, and Ms. Pryor is asked to speak after the presentation. So let's start the presentation, please. Mr. Cerruti.
Thank you again, Madam President, and I appreciate the opportunity to share information and an update with the Board of Education, our superintendent, Ms. Avalos, and our community. The presentation will provide a racial justice update. I'll be joined by our administrator, who is our district's leader and oversees our Office of Educational Equity, Mr. Matt Espinoza. We'll hear about the FBSU, which is new. They've had 2 meetings to date. Lisa Lavasser, who is the administrator who oversees our Office of Family and Community Engagement, will be providing an update there. And then some really exciting work that's being done with our newcomer and refugee supports, and Ms. Lucy Bollinger, our Director of English Learner Services, will provide an update there. And then we'll conclude with some upcoming events, and Matt will be coming back and finishing up with that. And I'd like to just kick off some of the foundational elements, and Matt will be up here in shortly. We always like to start with this slide because these are some of the foundational elements that guide our thinking, our planning, our decision-making, and ultimately our accountability systems that we hold ourselves responsible to. And that's our learning system, every student learning in every subject in every classroom every day to prepare college, career, and life-ready graduates. From that stems our district's 4 strategic goals. Ultimately, we look at and analyze our, when we talk about college ready, college and career ready, we define that through our graduate profile. And then our educational equity model and framework that lives above, beyond, and within all elements of the work that we do. Our equity mission, we're committed to addressing the needs, leveraging assets, and affirming identities of all students. And this is really important. These 2 bullet points are crucial. To disrupt systems of oppression so that identities do not become predictive of outcomes by transforming the policies, practices, and mindsets that marginalize priority subgroups. That idea of identities do not become predictive of outcomes is extremely important. And ultimately, to close, oftentimes what is heard most often is the achievement gap, but we look at it through achievement opportunity relationship and expectation gaps. And then make sure that we are transforming the conditions that create those gaps. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is, on an individual basis, myself included, everyone, individually, us collectively as an organization, Our staff, our students, our parents, our entire community is becoming increasingly equity literate. And we define that through these five points, the Equity Literacy Institute by Professor Paul Gorski. And we look at it as recognition, responding, redressing, actively cultivating and sustaining. And that idea of recognizing and being able to recognize bias, inequities, and oppression when it is happening. And by becoming more literate and equity literate, we are better able to see it individually when it is happening. And the ability then to respond. How do we as individuals and we as an entire organization respond in real time as it's happening? How do we do that? That's the immediate term. The idea to redress and begin to eliminate these biases, inequities, and oppressive ideologies, that's the long-term work that we're doing. That's the hard work of centuries of policies, practices, and mindsets that have been rooted in all of us, and making sure that we're doing that hard work so that we're looking at those root causes and eliminating them, and actively cultivating equitable anti-oppressive ideologies and institutional cultures. So we're really looking at transforming our organization, and then ultimately it's the sustainability of those efforts. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt.
So great to see you all in person, Madam Board President, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman and Ms. Avalos. Our work, thank you. Our work today is to review a few of the updates on our actions for advancing racial
Could you just
justice.
pause so we can be?
Sorry.
Thanks.
The work today is to review a few of the actions as part of the racial justice action plan, or educational equity action plan for racial justice. The first item that I wanted to update on was an item that was raised to increase representation of diverse narratives in our school curriculum. And one of the things that we've been doing throughout the months with our heritage celebrations is providing book talks, or where we recommend readings relating to the groups that we're celebrating in our resolutions. And what we've done is we've actually partnered with our librarians at the secondary level, and we've kind of outsourced to a wide range of supporters for our elementary level to review books and including the recommended books from those panels, as well as other books that we already have in our library, and to create a list, a formal list of those books organized by the groups that they represent, as well as some of the issues that they represent, and to do an audit to figure out to what extent we have them in our libraries currently, these books, and to note which schools do not have them in the libraries. And that way we can use these lists to make some decisions about ordering, and both at the site level and at the district level, some additional books. And what we've done is for our librarians have already analyzed all the books and selected a handful as like the top recommended books that they would recommend every single library in the district have. And so we have a list of those. And at our elementary level, we have a group of reviewers looking at those books, and they're rating it on a scale of 1 to 3. And so we're going to look at those books that are rated at the top rated books at the elementary level to also put on annotate as a list of these we really recommend every school having in their school libraries. So it's helping to put some of these stories. And by the way, the only books that were reviewed at the secondary level, at least, were books that were published from 2012 or earlier or more recently. And so we're really focused on contemporary visions of narratives of these groups. In addition to that, the librarians are working on then taking those lists of books and adding, if they don't already have it, adding diversity tags to Destiny. So that way a student and or staff that are looking in the Destiny catalog can search for books based on those different identity groups and create and easily find a list of all those books that are recommended, and in order to be to check them out and find their availability. And that will also allow us to do more quantitative analyses and really calculate out of the Destiny system exactly how many books we currently have in our system at a given time, what percentage of our whole catalog are these books comprising, and that will help to drive our ongoing decision-making and purchasing as far as diversifying our libraries across the school district. The second piece that I wanted to share is that we recently wrapped up our second year of our Equity Leadership Institute. This year, we had the CPL secondary math team along with several of our high schools, Cosumnes, Oaks, Elk Grove, Franklin, Pleasant Grove, and Valley High, all have a team of school leaders, including the principal and administrators, as well as teacher or staff leaders, engaging in a series of online modules around anti-racist and equity leadership, including a module on compassionate dialogue, thriving as a racially conscious person. Let's talk about race, what is implicit bias, and in the end, working on leveraging that knowledge to develop an equity plan that tackles identified equity issues at their school site. The next steps for that is that in the interim, they will be working with me to engage in some leadership coaching about implementation around the equity plan and some of the work that they're doing. And then we will be hosting, as we get back to our in-person meetings, hopefully next year. If not, it will be virtual. Our Leading for Equity Collaborative, where the schools that participated in the Leadership Institute last year will be able to meet with the next cohort of leaders, and we'll keep adding on to share progress and give successes and help each other in the implementation process of their equity plans. All right, so with that said, there's a couple more items. One is an update on for our families of Black Students United. And so I will introduce Ms. Lisa Lavasser.
Good evening. Thank you, Board President Albiani, board members, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Avalos. I appreciate you letting me take a few minutes of your time tonight to share about a new group that has been formed out of the Office of Family and Community Engagement. For years, our data has followed similar national trends when it came to our African American students. Our African American students' academic achievement data, represented by state assessments and SAT scores, have consistently shown lower scores than other subgroups in our district. And for this reason, as well as others, we decided to try something different. We decided to form the new group, Families of Black Students United. Because after all, who knows their child or children better than families? Families of Black Students United is open to any parent, guardian, or ally of Black students in Elk Grove. All meetings are co-facilitated by myself and two amazing members of the Family and Community Engagement team, Kathy Wilson and Lisette LeMay. And honestly, without them, none of this work and outreach would be possible. The focus of the group is simple. We call it the 4 C's. You see them up here on the slide. Community. Our families and allies of Black students live all over our large district. And our first goal for this group is to build a community amongst each other. Connection. Because we are a large district with several initiatives, we want to make sure our families and allies are connected to the work. We are currently doing this And even more importantly, we want to make sure our district leaders are connected to the funds of knowledge that our families have and can share with us. Collaboration. In order to make impactful change for our Black students, we must be co-creators of this work together. And capacity. During each meeting and beyond, we hope to build the capacity of all involved. We want to move away from transactional and reactive work to true partnerships between our families and our district leaders that will result in the success of all of our Black students. So far, this group has met twice and will continue to meet monthly, taking the summer months off. We will look forward to this group expanding and look forward to the impactful work that they will bring to our district. Thank you. So up next, I have the privilege of introducing Lucy Bollinger, our Director of English Learner Services.
Thank you and good evening. There are nearly 5 million English language learners in U.S. public schools today. By 2025, 1 in 4 students in the U.S. will be an English learner. In California, there are over 2,280,000 ever ELs and over 175,000 newcomers. In EGUSD, we have around 1,000 newcomer and refugee students, and we continue to see increases every year. So what we are doing is looking at teachers and administrators needing to be equipped to continue providing the best tools for student learning, both in and outside the classroom. An essential question is, how will we continue to equip teachers, administrators, and support staff to address the diverse cultural, emotional, linguistic, digital needs of our newcomers? We wanted tonight to highlight some updates on newcomer and refugee support, many which are supported with CARES Act funds. For the first part, tutoring. We've started this year at the elementary level with 70 students that are then tutored by 12 site-preferred subs. These are led by our EL instructional coaches over 10 weeks. During those 10 weeks, each student got 40 minutes of instruction 3 days a week. In addition, the teachers or tutors were also pushing into the students' classrooms, providing oral language skills and/or teacher recommendations. We train the substitutes in foundational skills, and based on the data that we're receiving, we look to see how we can expand this and also build the capacity of our substitutes, thanks to the coordination with Shelley Clark. We assessed all the students, again, making sure that they fell under the expectations of, or the definition of, a newcomer. And we then looked at their phonological awareness and phonics tests to prioritize which students received the tutoring. In collaboration with Sherry Hughes from FACE, she trained all of our tutors around talking points, sending surveys, and how to get onto Zoom and Google for our families. In addition, we provided letters or language essentials for teachers of reading and spelling for our substitutes who were the tutors. We saw attendance improve over time, and we kept the group small based on evidence for no more than 6. And finally, we're looking to see how we can continue to sustain this and expand to our secondary newcomer students as well. For training, an expansion around PD specific to newcomers and refugees, we're looking into strands of professional development around instructional supports and for welcoming newcomer families for both classified and certificated staff. One of the things we're most excited about are the newcomer welcome centers. In collaboration with FACE and school sites, our team will be creating newcomer welcome centers starting in the Florin and Valley regions to welcome newcomers from across the district, support with enrollment, connect with resources, get primary language communication, and feel a sense of welcome and inclusion. Saturday and evening classes. In the coming months, in collaboration with FACE, we will be providing opportunities for students and parents and guardians to take a variety of classes, including but not limited to ESL, SEL and mental health, academic support, and community resources. Courses. At the secondary level, in collaboration with CPL and sites, We are revising courses, for example, some science courses, history, social science, so that our newcomer students have greater access to core subjects and the most updated curriculum, including digital resources and supplemental tools. We are then identifying and providing individualized site supports for students and staff based on the needs. And finally, collaboration. I'm fortunate enough to be part of SEARS, which is Support for Immigrant and Refugee Students Collaborative, as well as the California Newcomer Network. And we have ongoing collaboration with FACE and of course with our sites. We are so grateful for the hard work of our teachers, EL coordinators, EL coaches, admin, and support staff. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Matt.
Thank you, Lucy. All right, so a couple of final updates. Our dress code review process, reviewing the dress code policies, particularly through the lens of equity as it relates to gender, race, religion, and other forms of identity, has already begun. We've gathered information and input from several staff members and principals, as well as from our students through our student equity councils. And we will be begin to meet as a task force, a review team task force, and with a collaboration between staff, students, and family members. Another accomplishment is that in our hiring packets for all new hires, we've now included the equity vision, as well as an invitation to join the Equity Coalition to every single new hire in the districts. And so that's something that we hope to make sure to include as part of our culture and the culturing of the new hires as we go through the hiring process. We've engaged in various virtual recruitment and seen a lot of participation in specifically in the issue of social justice and educational equity. We found especially new graduates out of our university programs are very, very interested in working for our district because we have a vision and mission for educational equity, and we believe that that will help to continue to draw and support recruitment. And then we've engaged in racial justice book clubs, one for staff focused on restorative justice and restorative practices called Justice on Both Sides, and that have really furthered the concepts of how we would apply restorative justice to address discipline issues, as well as the culturing of our schools. And with our students, they've engaged in the book, The New Jim Crow, which has helped them understand how systemic racism has impacted our society, both in the schools, but even more so in the criminal justice system. And then as we move forward in the last few months of the school year, we have several different community events, including a community equity collaborative gathering scheduled for this month. We have an Understanding Ramadan and Empowering Muslim Students community webinar. We're meeting with our Equity Coalition early in May. We have a Standing Up Against Anti-Asian Hate community webinar. Again, the community webinars and all of these events are open to the public. We have for AAPI, we have several events scheduled, including a book talk, one focused on judo, martial arts, and culture, and one focused on Polynesian dance. We also have a disability advocacy book talk scheduled for next month as well. For staff, we have workshops on understanding Muslim students. So we had one today and we'll have one on Thursday. Strengths-based leadership for equity and preventing and responding to anti-Asian bullying. And then we have several different racial justice task forces that are meeting or have been meeting, including one building out a racial justice speaker series, another one focused on district-wide equity events and ways to tie equity themes into district-wide events. As I mentioned, the dress code review policy task force. We have another group looking at representation, particularly of Black, Latinx, Pacific Islander, and Native students in our advanced coursework.
And then a group that's looking at developing a safe Black space or something along those lines campaign. And finally, a group working with our Human Resources Department to develop a Black Educators Network. So those are some of the things that are happening in addition to our ongoing meetings with our student equity councils and other stakeholder groups. And that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll hear our public comment from Ms. Pryor now, please, and then we will take board questions and comments.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to actually listen before I spoke. What I was hoping to hear was the movement that you're making on your discipline practices. I know I've been talking about that for some time now. I was hoping to hear some statistics, something that you are trying to do. Book clubs are great, diversity tags, okay, great. I heard of equity leadership, but no plan can be put into place until we start specifically talking about the problem that Black students are having in your district as it relates to disproportionate discipline. In terms of the FBSU, I heard community, connection, collaboration, and capacity. What I didn't hear was resources. We're going to need some specific resources to pour into this community that has been neglected for so long. Right after FBSU, I heard the different resources that are being given to your English as a second language students. There's a whole program. There are support services. I heard nothing about social emotional learning. I heard nothing about tapping into different stakeholders. I keep reading your stakeholders list. I keep seeing new people that have come after Black Youth Leadership Project has been at the table for 3 years. And we're not listed as your community partner. So I'm starting to really feel like you all want me to go away. And that's not happening. I can assure you that. I told you a long time ago that we're not going anywhere. What you need to do is to actually partner with us to kind of do the things that you refuse to do on behalf of Black students. In terms of your what are those things called? Those meetings, those restorative practices, those restorative circles, you are not having the right trainer to train you. Because when I hear from Black students and they tell me that they're put into positions where they feel like they have to come out swinging instead of feeling like they're restored, there is a problem. There's a problem. I don't know how best to reiterate it for you, but you all have a problem with the way in which you relate to your Black students. And I'm gonna give you an example. Right before this meeting, we saw the George Floyd verdict come out. Not even an hour later, there was a 15-year-old girl murdered by police. Nobody is talking about that except for your Black students who are hitting me up. You all are going to have to get out of your bubble of comfort, look around you and see the trauma that is continually happening to these students that you are disproportionately disciplining. We have to talk about some things. And the only way we can do that is when we start to get real and we start to look at the issues that are permeating throughout this system that you guys like to call education. It is not equitable for students who look like me. And I think that it's time that you start to address it. Stop all these performative things and let's get to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pryor. Okay, board member questions or comments? Mr. Perez.
Thank you very much. Seems like every time you come back, things are progressing, slowly but surely. But yet, as you heard, we have people in the community are very concerned with particular issues of their community. So I'm wondering, can we readjust some of your priorities to deal with these particular needs? Because of the fact that, you know, suspensions has been a long time issue with the district. This has been going on, like our community knows. So we're doing it, but not as fast as they want it to. So what can we do as board members to help you to deal with this particular issue or some of your expertise? You know, can you advise us board members how to not to resolve this issue? And so is it a budget issue? Do you need more money, more staff? You know, and you mentioned in the CARES Act, you're using CARES Act. So, and there is in this round of money funding, there's plenty of money to do this. So do you have any ideas, any proposals that you may possibly share with us, board members, that maybe other school districts has come forward to, that they use? So, you know, let's make this a priority. That's what I'm concerned about. Not just, you know, lip service. And you're doing a great job, everybody. I'm talking about not only you. We're coming together, but apparently, you know, we need to do a little bit faster. Subgroups. I like that 4 C's: community, connections, collaboration, capacity. Capacity is funding, right? That more of a funding capacity to do this particular project?
Board Member Perez, can you repeat that, please? Can you repeat that question, please?
Well, you have 4 C's, and I understand community, connecting, and another word for that is engaging with the community, right? Connection, that's to me. Collaborating, getting a variety of people working together. Capacity, what do you, I want to make sure I understand what capacity means.
So when
Is
we
that-
speak of capacity, we speak of building one's capacity of learning about what the needs are and then supporting those needs. So our
Supporting
district
it.
leaders learning about what our families are feeling that they need, and our district leaders learning, and our families learning about what we're doing and how we can partner together to build the capacity to support our students.
Does that include funding?
We do have funding in the FACE office right now for this work.
But, you know, some geographic areas, some communities, groups, subgroups, we know that there's issues. Now, what can we do to deal with those issues? I'm going to present that to you also, and all the staff here, and work as a team to develop these programs. I'm going to go on. The English Language Learners Program, I'm glad to hear that, because in my educational background, I had developed a newcomer center for Sacramento Unified School District. And we started it at the middle school at Woolsey Wood. Then we realized that we should have started it at the elementary school. And it seems like you started it at the high school level. Do you plan to maybe start in newcomer centers at the middle school and maybe at the elementary school? And is this like a pull-out program that they come to Florin High School and this other high school? Or
So with the initial plans, we are focused on setting up a center at Florin High School and Jackman Middle School.
right.
Those again were based on the populations and the locations and the DMM that the FACE team and myself went through when we were looking at this and looking for space within sites.
Right.
We do see it as a regional model in which that way all of our sites can learn the high school that they'll eventually go to. And then from there, once we evaluate the success of these centers, we do want to expand. And so Lisa and myself have been doing a lot of research on this since I've started here, visiting other districts that have those centers. And again, looking for what we can provide families so that it's consistent in terms of messaging, welcoming enrollment, and then additional resources for them.
I would recommend you go to Santa Rosa's Unified School District. I went there and observed the kindergarten preschool class for non-English speakers, and excellent program. I heard about, so I went there. So these students are being pulled out from other schools to go there full time?
No, so these centers are for, and Lisa, feel free to join me if you'd like. We are also putting together a more systemic way for us to communicate with my department, with Lisa's department, with the school site when we have a newcomer or refugee student and family, so that from each of our departments, we can provide the resources. This would be a place where there might be after school courses or Saturday classes. This is not where they will be going though for their instruction during this time. This is where we would align them with the EL coach at their site, or like I said, any other supplemental support.
So how are we dealing with that population of English language learners in the classroom when they need some extra help?
Are you talking about English
English
learners in
learners,
general
right,
or newcomers?
Right, within maybe within the Florence High Schools in the classroom setting.
So we provide a variety of supports, whether it's supplemental curriculum, like I said, also opportunities for tutoring. We have our bilingual teaching associates, professional learning, our coaches, not to mention all the hard work that our EL coordinators do. And then we work with sites individually on the supplemental EL funds that they receive so that we can look at their data and determine next steps.
And what model are you using? I was wondering from any model program that you kind of replicating from another school district or?
Again, we look to move past just simple compliance, and we want to make sure that we accelerate outcomes and access for all of our English learners so that they can be competitive and successful with their college and career. And so it varies by sites. And then, like I said, we build off of bright spots such as our EL summer school or other opportunities to see how we can expand that. In addition, in both the Florin and Valley regions, we are part of a 3-year grant with EL Rise, which is a partnership with SEAL, as well as Dr. Lori Olson, who is one of the co-writers of the California English Learner Roadmap, in which we will get individualized professional development in addition to the professional development that they're already providing through SCOE. So we look forward to seeing how that expands at those regions and then how we can build that into our other regions.
Very good, very good. In terms of funding, do you need more funding? Do you anticipate having?
And I don't mean to not, Lucy certainly could respond to that question, Mr. Perez. I just want to talk because other board members may have the same question. Programmatically, are there needs that we have? And know that you will see all of these. I've asked all of these program experts as well as others. Rob has done the same. And that information, we had a meeting this week with our labor group. So we're generating, and as of today, I'll be off by maybe just a few. There was literally a spreadsheet with 453 ideas that have been generated, and we're theming those, and that's information that will be coming to the board in the not too distant future. And so know that all of these folks have been asked to analyze their programs, bring recommendations, and that will be information that you as a board will be able to look at and discuss.
So in the future, they will speak up to the issue of we need more funding for this particular project?
Yeah, I don't mean, I'm not silencing them by any means, but I just want to share that all of these folks, as well as Student Support and Health Services, elementary, secondary, Rob can speak to areas of need. Mr. Riley, we're gathering all of that information and then we're sorting it into general themes, technology. It could be SEL supports, so that, and then we're going to be going through a prioritization process. So what we can bring to the board is some of the collective thinking that we've gathered, and all of that is also being informed by the parent group that we're meeting with tomorrow and Thursday, and a variety of other sources. So I just wanted to share with you that they have done the thinking and have done it for years, because I've asked them to analyze their program, and basically if Elk Grove was perfect and we were perfectly staffed for English Learner Services, Family and Community Engagement Equity, what is that model? And they have it. And then ultimately it's, if you have $1 to spend, where are the priorities? But in order to know, we want to know where we are, but we also want to know where we want to be. And that's the research that they've done. So I just wanted to share with you that we will be prepared to provide comprehensive thinking regarding what our needs are as it relates to utilization of the COVID relief funds.
You mentioned the CARES Act funds. What about LCAP funds? I mean, is this part of that? Or they use any part of those type of funds?
It's all part of it. So when we're developing the budget, so we have the SB 86 plan that needs to be board approved June 1st. We have the regular, for lack of a better term, budget that the board will approve, and we will have an LCAP that will be approved also in June. And so those are the three areas that are our initial priority. There are other CARES funds that we will be continuing to plan for, but they don't necessarily have the need for an approved board plan by June 1st. And some of those also have a bit longer shelf life. So we're biting off the initial chunk. But part of that is also the conversation and the examination of our district's regular budget as well as the LCAP.
So also, you mentioned that, yeah, they're doing analysis, but are they also assessment and evaluation of the present programs that we have?
The answer to that is yes.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
That's 10 minutes, Mr. Price, just as a time check, sir.
Time check?
No, it's been 10 minutes. I'm just saying.
Thought we have 15 minutes.
We try to keep it around 5 to 8, but I'm not cutting you off, sir. I'm just trying to get us all a little more aware of how long we're talking.
Okay, I'll cut it short. But like I said, important timetables. Is there any, can you put some timetables in some of your projects or you plan to do that?
So most of our projects already have timetables. Some of them, for example, these task forces.
Yeah, I like to see that in your reports.
Yes, the convening of those groups are meant to be, so that one of us or a small group of us doesn't come up with a whole timetable, that we develop that as those task forces come together. But other projects do have timetables.
Okay. Oh, that just, for the public, they need to see that we have timetables, outcomes and all that. All right, then, thank you very much again. Excellent report. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Yang.
Thank you. Well, just want to say thank you for the presentation and thank you for all the work that you guys do for our underprivileged students and community. So thank you so much. As I alluded to many times, the fact that I'm a refugee, English learner, this really hit homes. And, this kind of work, I understand is challenging, but it's rewarding, especially for the students and the parents. I'd like to make some comments on this report. I thought that it's very good in the sense of bringing us and the community some of the work that has been established and some of the work that has been scheduled that shows improvements and results. I thought that was great. Specifically, I would like to ask you guys, standing up against anti-Asian hate on May 4th, I just want to know what is that going to transpire into what actually going to happen? Can someone touch on that real quick?
Yes, so for that, we're working with our Office of Youth Development, and we've contracted with an expert in the field who's done training through the TESOL, which is Teachers of English as Speakers of Other Languages, on the same topic, and she's a professor in Virginia. And she'll be sharing some of the historical aspects of racism and discrimination against the Asian community, and as well as some of the current ways in which it manifests, and some examples of how to address it, address it through an anti-bullying or preventative approach.
So I heard, so she's going to be talking, and how is that going to get to people? How's that?
So there's an open community webinar, so that's the one on the 4th, and then there's a workshop specifically for staff members to practice and apply the concepts on the 5th.
Right, but so it's going to be posted on what our website, or I just want to understand how we're going to connect to our audience, which are the people out there.
Yeah, so we'll be working with communications to make sure that that invitation gets out to our, the community event gets out to the public, as well as our staff members. The workshop is already posted online.
Okay, and then the next one is the Black Educator Network, May 4th. Can you explain that a little bit in detail so that the public can understand?
Yes, so I think we've mentioned this in a previous presentation, but the Black Educators Network was an idea that came about in our development of our annual educational equity plan. And it was a response to providing some sort of support for current staff members. That's both, leadership development, but also a lot of the social emotional and other kinds of networking supports that our Black educators in the district are looking for in terms of affinity group, and also to establish a model for other groups that might want a similar network or system. And we've been working with our human resources department to kind of get the system in place for that. And then there's a group of folks that are part of our equity coalition that have signed up to be developing members and to contribute to the development and goal setting and structuring of that as a task force.
Okay, great, thank you. So as an English learner, growing up, I heard ESL. So that's what, English second language?
Yeah.
So English was my fourth language, but now we use English learning, right? Okay. So that's, that hits home as well. One of the things that I want to advocate for is the fact that these students has very low self-esteem. The fact that they don't know the language well, and perhaps some of them came to this country a little late, and maybe they don't know the culture well as well. So I think it's very critical for us to not just teach them the language, but explain and to them, the cultural and why do they need to learn a language. I think as simple as it sounds, a lot of them don't know. And I was one of them until later down the road. And, the help center, I don't know what type of help that you guys provide in detail, but I would like to see helps in, 3 different areas, such as jobs. I think that's probably the most critical area, and then career, and then business. With that said, I saw this diagram here, and I want to point it out. Hopefully I can find it. And this will be my last point. Where is it at? The one with the self-awareness and self-management. Can you pull that up? I'm trying to find it on my laptop here. How am I doing with time, Beth? Okay, all right. You're not finding it either, huh?
Oh, you're talking about.
Oh, I think that was on the website.
Yeah.
So I love that diagram.
Yes.
However, I would like to see you incorporate other areas such as self-reliance and leadership and public speaking. I think those are really critical, especially for English learner. But I mean, it could be important to any kids or anyone. But I think that for English learning, it's very important for them to learn how to be self-reliant. because we in the position where we're in such a need of help. And sometimes you don't know how to help yourself. So I think that not just being self-awareness, but how do you help yourself? I think that's very critical. And then leadership, I think that as vulnerable as these kids are, they still need to have leadership skills. They still need to be a leader for themselves, first and foremost. But if we don't teach them that, because they're very vulnerable, it's very hard for them to think of that being a leader for themselves, first and foremost. I think it's critical that you guys put that in there. And third, I think, public speaking is very critical too, because English is their second language or third, fourth, whatever it is. Most of them are very shy, but please express the importance of public speaking to them so that they can learn at an early age. I think these three areas is going to really push them to be better as an educator, as an employee, or as a future entrepreneur, whatever they want to be. So thank you for all your work, and I look forward to see another report very soon.
Thank you, Mr. Yang. Ms. Charis Espinoza?
Thank you all. Thank you for the presentation. Others have hit on my areas of interest, so I'll attempt to be brief. One of the public commenters mentioned social emotional learning, and I realize that you have selected a handful of the many initiatives that you're working on to be able to go a little bit more in depth tonight. But I would like, hopefully soon, to hear a little bit more about what we are providing in terms of social emotional support to our Black and Brown students. Today was a particularly harrowing day for them, and I'm just left to wonder what resources have we provided to teachers to manage those feelings and conversations tomorrow, and to staff to manage their own feelings. So I would hope to hear more about that sometime soon. You did have in future updates or on your update slide dress code, but I was wondering if you can do either one of two things. If you know off the top of your head any high-level timeline for the work of that group, or if you might be able to provide it to the board in a written communication later.
Yeah, so we have our task force meeting where we're bringing all of the suggestions from the different stakeholders that we've solicited to the group, and we'll be able to give a report and work together as a task force to kind of set a timeline. The goal is that we have something ready for next, that'll be implemented next school year, but exactly what that timeline is, we'll report out. On Monday. Yeah, so we're meeting on Monday.
Just so I'm clear, the goal is to have it in place before the start of the next school year, or to be adopted at some point next year?
No, for the start of the school year. And in fact, and to kind of give a time frame for it and put her on the spot, Ms. Sariano, when is, because this is crucial. We want to get it into handbooks.
Yeah.
And so what's the timeline for our handbooks?
Typically, so there's a couple of approaches that we're taking just given the circumstances we're under this year, both with staffing as well as just COVID. And what we are hoping is that we will have supplements that we will add piece by piece before or by the time school starts, usually in August. And so like the discipline section will go out to schools, and we're looking at another section that might include schools before it's completed in the book, just because there's a lot of crossing T's and dotting I's that have to go in before we publish the book to make sure that parents get it. But the goal is usually to make sure parents have it in their Parent Synergy now, and they have to acknowledge receipt of it in Parent Synergy before they actually start Parent Synergy, before they can open Parent Synergy. So we like to have that all there, ready to go by September and translated into both Spanish and English.
So the short answer to your question, it's not for approval. Sometime in the school year, it will be official. The board will have had information about that and given its nod. It will be in handbooks, or it'll be supplement to the handbooks for the start of the 2021 or 21-22 school year.
So it's not, there wouldn't be any creation of board policy or change of board policy in order to put that into effect district-wide? There would be?
If there's any policy implications, which there likely would be, then that would be coming to the board for approval.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you.
Also, Mr. Chair, one other clarification. So there's two handbooks. So there's the district parent student handbook, which are required notifications that we work with Sloan, with Ozone Smith on, but then there's also the school handbook. And I think for dress code policy, it's one of those things that should be developed also for the school handbook.
Thank you. Yes, one of my hopes is that as we update dress code policies, we will also iron out inconsistencies where, you know, there's a great deal of difference in subjectivity, frankly, in how this is handled from site to site. So that's another thing we can tackle. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Fortuna.
It's on the spot time, man. Step up. I know that everyone who's involved in all the offerings you've provided are appreciative of the offerings. And those who attend have spoken highly of the different opportunities that they've had. That being said, how do we get people at the table, man, that either don't understand their need to be there or in fact don't want to be there?
Yeah, I think I have an answer for that. Very difficult question, but because I think the first thing is that we have to have the learning modules, the professional learning modules, and the resources and tools in place, and get some people trained in those. And the next step that we're actually the phase that we're in now is that several of our school sites, because that's the locus of control is at the school site level. And at the district level, we can only have, or at least for my trainings, we only have volunteers, right? But if we can get it into the school sites and at staff meetings, et cetera, then our site leaders have a little bit more say in helping to reculture those. And so we're already seeing several of our school sites now working with me and other folks that are leading some equity and SEL work, for example, and packaging them for their school sites to kind of make sure that that there's a coherent vision being built at the school site level. So I think that's the model that's going to allow us to get to every single staff member as we start to spread out. Of course, more trainers helps. Of course, more people that have been trained and then can share and try it out and then be part of the advocacy group. That's our coalition, right? All of those things help. The more people that are like, oh my gosh, I went to this and now you should do it too. Like that's because instead of forcing it on them, that's even better, right? Now that we're bringing more people to the table voluntarily. And so those are the vehicles that we're working on to get that piece done.
Yeah. And when we talk about trainers, I certainly hope is part of the work that Mark will be bringing to us that there'll be an expectation, or at least a recommendation, for me to be an expectation, that we see a recommendation for enhancement to your office, because to me, I've said it before, it's amazing that you've been able to accomplish what you've done with an office of one, and our expectations certainly are greater than that can be achieved with an office of one. And so here's another on the spot for you. Is it appropriate for you in your position to bring forward specific interventional programs that will change outcomes, educational outcomes, behavioral, social emotional outcomes, suspension rates, and come forward with specific programs and the recommendations with respect to the resources that are necessary to implement those programs?
I would say it's probably wouldn't be appropriate for anyone to tackle that huge task. Any one person, really it takes a team. And so being at the table is important, and I've been able to work with many different groups and different stakeholders in this process and build, but it's really critical that we build capacity of our leaders at the site level and at the district level to bring that mindset to the table and to collaborate together and reviewing and analyzing those. One of the focus then is to develop processes that will ensure that when we review materials, that is taken into account and that we stay abreast of that. So I do bring, personally, I know I've suggested certain programs or certain supports, but so has other people. And I think we need a common process and capacity to address those.
That's a thoughtful response. I could hit a lot of different areas, but let's take one that perhaps, at least in my mind, is a little more straightforward than others. We consistently hear about the issue of suspension of our Black youth, especially Black boys. But we know it's also there with homeless and foster and others. How long do we wait? How long are we to be patient before we make a concerted effort to say, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it, and this is what it's going to take to get it done? How long do we wait?
Well, I think it's fair to say that we have urgency as well as coherence. Those two things are hard to balance as a district. We move with urgency, and there are some places that are further along than others and doing amazing things, but it's not happening in every single classroom everywhere, and that takes a lot more people on board. And so that's where it's really difficult to balance those two aspects as we move forward. There's certainly a lot of classrooms as well as schools that are further ahead in all of these issues and than others, and trying to get us all at the same space is a heavy lift and takes a lot of coordination. So I think we should not be waiting, and we should keep demanding and pushing forward. And I think that's what we're trying to do. There isn't one solution. As a matter of fact, I would say that all the things we presented today all can contribute to addressing the disproportional suspension of our Black students in a variety of different indirect and direct ways. And so we must move the culture of the entire district and shift that through all of these combined efforts.
Yeah, it seems kind of popular for me to be the bad guy because I constantly ask questions that people would rather not hear and make comments that people would rather me not make the comments. But we're a unified school district. And when we talk equity, should not the district have approaches that are district-wide? Should it be left up to the luck of the draw being the philosophy of the principal and or their staff in concert with one another to address specific issues with specific kids? To me, that's the height of what this whole issue of equity is all about. It's not that a need is addressed because you happen to have a good teacher. The need shouldn't be addressed because you happen to go to the right school. The need should be addressed because you're a student in the district. So, thanks, man.
You finished?
Yeah.
Thank you. Ms. Jamerson?
Hi, Matt. Thank you so much for the presentation from all of you. I guess just following Mr. Fortuna, being that I'm new to the board, for clarification, is there a task force right now that is assigned to addressing the disproportionate suspension of Black students, similar to how there's a task force developing a dress code.
So the short answer to that is no. There is no specific task force related to that. This is the approach that we've taken with it. And I want to be careful how I say this because people, I understand what the issue is. And I will say it again, the way that I've described the work that we've done, because we've made significant progress. Now I can already hear that folks are upset as if, but the way that I describe that is that we have significantly reduced the number of incidents that are taking place on our campus that result in exclusionary discipline of students. However, we have persistent and pernicious disproportionate application. And I want to note that because there are far fewer kids than previously over the course of years, there's been a notable decline. Our African-American students are disproportionately having this applied to them. As Mr. Forcina had said, there are other subgroups as well, but there is no question. The work that we're doing is we are always open to, we don't assume if we had the answer, we would be applying that answer. But the work that we have done is embedded right at the site level. And so this is a topic that is ongoing with elementary and secondary education, the ongoing analysis of the data, the calibration of application. And so it's a regular conversation when Dr. Graywall and Mr. Murray are with their principals. And with vice principals, they're analyzing situations, what was done, how was it applied. Conversations are taking place in terms of best practices. The work that is ongoing in terms of, as Matt had just indicated, all these trainings are taking place. And one of the questions I just want to point out that's asked, and it's a good question, is when do we as a district mandate training for all? And when do we leave it open for those that are interested? And so one of the things that we are doing is, and I've had a conversation with Superintendent Hoffman about this, and we're looking at the optimal time so that we're not right in the midst of finishing out this year and planning for next. But we are positioned to be able to bring a team together that is going to identify, because there's all kinds of things that we could be doing. And do we have the capacity to do it all? We don't. So then what are the highest leverage things that we want to do? And we're going to be engaging a broad group in analyzing that. We positioned ourselves to be able to have that kind of a conversation because now we have the framework, we have a number of things that are taking place. We're also looking at analyzing the measures of equity. And so I don't mean to digress off of that because the short answer is no. But it can be, well, if we had one, what would they do? Not saying we don't need one, but it would be what would they do? And I just want to point out that the work that is being done directly face-to-face with our principals and our teachers and our site administrators, vice principals in the schools, literally day to day as incidents are occurring. And very recently, the data report that I provided for the board indicated, for example, because there were a number of questions regarding exclusionary discipline within the context of distance learning. And so those numbers were extremely low, albeit it was disproportionate. It was disproportionate on two levels. It was disproportionate for our Black students. It was actually disproportionate for our white students. Is where we saw disproportionality. But I just also want to point out, because if the community isn't aware, that number, that total N was 24. That's the total number of exclusionary discipline incidents that we've had this year.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the directness of the answer. Being that it has been an ongoing conversation at the site level, are there strategies that have been successful that can be shared with the community or some so that people are aware of what strategies have been taking place?
And Mr. Murray, if you'd like to come up, because it might be helpful to hear directly from Mr. Murray, who works, and Dr. Graywall, who are working directly with our principals. And so again, as Craig is coming up, we don't hide from the fact that disproportionality is persistent and pernicious. But I also don't want the community to feel as if there is no progress being made and there isn't work being done.
Absolutely.
But we
which is-
have work to do. There's no question.
So thank you. One example of what you're talking about is we have our directors, and when they meet with principals and vice principals, and I will speak mostly about pre-COVID because with the current situation, it's changed, but they calibrate on best practices. They look at the data, and
Will you be sure and talk into the mic? This our public area.
I'm sorry. I'll
Public's
speak
very
this way.
interested in this answer,
Yeah.
so.
Okay, so and so one example would be in a vice principal meeting, there was an event that happened at one of our high schools, and two girls who were African American in the morning, one was walking, bumped into another, flashed, and they fought. And so the vice principal took him in the office, and she went to the principal and said, I do not want to suspend these students. When she talked to the students, the one girl spoke to, I was just walking and I was thinking about a family member, and I just bumped into her and I don't know what happened. And then next thing I know, we were fighting. And so the principal initially said, we have to suspend. They were fighting. It was in the cafeteria before school started, and high profile, we have to do it. And the vice principal pushed back and said, we need to rethink this. I don't want to suspend these girls. And the principal said, well, then what are we going to do? And at that moment, the vice principal, I believe, said, I don't know, but I'll figure it out. Went and met with the girls, talked to them about doing something restorative. This is an option you can have. I'm certainly paraphrasing the work that went in by this vice principal in the school site. Long story short, she got the girls together and they did a public service campaign the next morning in the very spot where they got in the fight, with placards saying, don't fight, get along. The girls were not suspended. They went back to school. They were successful after that. Not an issue. Now, it didn't end there, because what we then had was the vice principal then at the next vice principal meeting shared with other vice principals. And there was a process about, this is what happened. And we spoke to the vice principals and we said, if you have a belief like this, we expect you to speak up to your principals and stand on your belief. In addition to that, then we had the vice principal present to the principals. And she told the story. And we said, and we expect you to listen to your vice principals if they stand up to you and they have these beliefs. So that happened, I believe, December or January before COVID. So the work was being done and it was getting ingrained, and the conversations with our administrators, led by our directors primarily, is very rich in moving from the culture of zero tolerance into one of being much more restorative and less zero tolerance. And as Mark said repeatedly, we know we have to move forward. We know we have to continue to do this work, but it is important to acknowledge that the work and good work is being done to move forward.
Thank you. That's exactly, being able to acknowledge what has taken place, I think, is what we need to hear. And then the commitment to continue moving forward as well. Thank you. I appreciate that. I did have just one last question about the presentation. The welcome centers and slide, I'm closed down, but I think that we've shown so far so much success with that model. And when you look at that model, you're seeing tutoring, you're seeing training, all of those things, and it's for a targeted group. And how can we utilize those best practices to target our other groups, our Black students, our other students in terms of achievement gaps, I think that the success that you've seen, if we can somehow use this as a model to address those other groups.
One example, this is really, really good work. Another example of this is very specific. specific to our black and brown boys in our secondary school. Movie Tomorrow is in place. It started at one high school. It's now at 3 of our high schools, along with 3 feeder middle schools that feed into those high schools. And again, it's tutoring, it's training. It's actually now a grade 7 through college program because they've coordinated with CRC, with Sac State. So it's an example. Lots more work to do, but something very similar to what you checked off these boxes. Yep. Training for staff. Yep. Centers. Each of the schools has a IYT group on their campus. Saturday evening stuff. Absolutely. Parents and kids. Absolutely. So they're out there. And that idea of targeted universal. We want better. But no, have to put specific programs, specific outputs. Just one example, but that is what we have to replicate. Again, this is probably more similar to what IYT did, so we probably learned from that model.
Thank you, Superintendent Hoffman. And he just touched on, as I was heading, you've heard Matt reference targeted and universal supports. And we do have universal support. High quality instruction is what we want for all of our kids all the time in every classroom. But there are strategies that are unique, for example, to English learners. And there is no question that what we have when we've done an analysis of targeted supports for our Black students, we need more. We need more. And then it's so which specifically what do we need? We're doing some work, for example, with Dr. Gloria Ladson Billings, who's one of the top researchers and experts in the world, quite frankly. And her book, Dream Keepers, How to Teach, and don't quote me on this, how to teach, although I've got copies in my office, but how to successfully teach African-American children. And she's working directly with our Department of Curriculum and Professional Learning. So it's a great question that you're asking. And so again, in the spirit of full disclosure, if we analyze, and as Chris had just indicated, IYT is a program specific for our Black boys in particular. It's not 100% exclusive to that, but nonetheless, that's what it's specifically for. But if we are looking at and we put everything up in terms of universal supports and what we have for the various groups in our organization for our kids, there's a lack in terms of what's needed for our Black children.
Thank you. And again, I just really appreciate all the work that is being done. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jamerson. Dr. Martinez-Lear?
So thank you for the presentation and the rich conversation. Hearing the different questions that were asked by my colleagues, I again am looking forward to future presentations coming back. I think it's helpful to know if there's specific programs that target the outcomes for us. And I think you'll be bringing that back as priorities, hopefully, and fundings that maybe we can expand upon just down the road. For example, like IYT, if that's successful and we expanded it to other sites previously, then what else can be done to enhance that? Or is there a different program that might better work as far as resources? One of my questions I had was with the Families of Black Students United, how many families do we have participating in that currently?
Our first meeting had 68 people attend, and then the second meeting had, I want to say it was 46.
So I was just thinking as a way to collect data, like we have those active participants, if at some point with not just, this Families of Black Students United, but also the newcomer families, if there's a way that we have a survey, because I know there's enriched conversations happening. And so I just want to make sure if they bring up some types of concerns or things that they identify as particularly hearing from the students' perspective, is there a way that we're collecting that data or doing a survey to know that they're feeling heard in the group as well. So
So right now, the format of our meetings, the first meeting that took place, we called it a listening session. And we had facilitators in each breakout room and note takers, and they just listened to the experiences of our families. So we asked them to share a positive experience, something that was challenging, and then something that they'd like to see changed. And then at the next meeting, we took all of that feedback and the group examined that. And during that meeting, they focused on what were the themes and trends that they saw in the data. And then what were some of the things that they thought that they could start to change, that they could start to work with us, the district leaders, to bring about change for our students. So we're hoping to eventually grow these types of groups in various populations around our district so that all voices are heard.
I appreciate that because I think collecting and capturing the stories are very vital. So that way we know what's working, what's not, and then we can hopefully replicate that throughout the district like you were mentioning. I do appreciate the different workshops that are being done to the upcoming ones that you mentioned. I did have a question in relation to one of the upcoming groups that were mentioned on the slide regarding the Safe Black Space campaign. What will that encompass?
Yeah, so that's to some extent will be determined by that group. It's part of the concerns or the interests or recommendations that we had from our communities last summer that said that Black students don't feel safe in all spaces on campus. And we want to let them know where they should be safe, and we want to make sure that transform all of our spaces into safe Black spaces. And so this group will help to determine like what criteria should we look for, like what makes a space safe for Black students? Where do students feel safe right now on a given campus, and what will it take to transform all of our safe spaces to be safe Black spaces for our students? And so so that's something that I certainly don't have the answer to, but we have a great group that are interested in discussing with that, as well as some members from our Black Student Union, some student members that will be contributing to that as well.
Well, thank you. I look forward to getting either a future board communication regarding some of the outcomes or the conversations, the discussion, because I feel that's enriched too, or even bringing it back at a future meeting, an update regarding some of the groups and the coalition or the task force that you will be hosting in the future weeks. So I'm looking forward to having that information in the future. And thank you all again for your work. It's greatly appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you to my fellow board members for asking excellent questions. I don't have a lot to add. Most things are said by this point. I just want to encourage you, Lisa, to continue to look for places to find people to put in your new group. I think sometimes we get a little gel, and you do a very good job going past that. But just to keep thinking of where we can add those people and what organizations we have that might be interested in them, and possibly reaching out personally to Mr. Boyd sounded like someone that would be very interested in participating in that event. Looking at who's commenting on our things would be excellent. Ms. Pryor or someone from our organization, I would appreciate you reaching out to those people. That would be fantastic. I think we are finished.
I'll
Thank
just
you.
say that part of our work is establishing an infrastructure with groups like this. So not only are we reaching out, but now we have a place to bring them to, right?
Yes.
So as they are identified at a school site or by a board member or whoever it is, now we have places to direct them to go. So we've spent a lot of time this year establishing our infrastructure of equity-oriented stakeholder groups that we can now start to bring and build and direct more people to.
And I think last week we had a workshop and they talked about going slow to go fast. And I think the whole board's very excited to go fast. I think we've done an excellent job building a base, and we're very excited to accelerate in this plan. Thank you. We look forward to seeing what we can do to help you. Our next item is bargaining units. Ms. Soriano, are there any bargaining units wishing to address the board?
And Board President Alviani, there are no bargaining units wishing to address the board.
Okay. We have a public hearing action, an action item, and a close from the floor. Let's get this public hearing action item done, and then we'll take a motion to extend our meeting. Mr. Riley.
Good evening, President Albiani, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Avalos. The Elk Grove Unified School District and the National Union of Healthcare Workers have signed an agreement, first addendum to the Memorandum of Understanding dated September 24, 2020 for the 2020-21 school year in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The Board of Education is asked to conduct a public hearing to present the agreement reached through negotiations dated March 5, 2021. With affirmative action by NUHW to ratify the agreement and the AB 1200 review approval by the Sacramento County Office of Education, the Board of Education is asked to open a public hearing and receive comments on the agreement, to close the public hearing after listening to comments, and then upon closing the public hearing, the board is asked to take action to approve or ratify the agreement.
I'd like to open the public hearing and call on Ms. Pinkert, Ms. Serrano to see if there are any public comments related to this item.
Madam Board President Albiani, there are no public comments related to this item.
Okay, then I'd like to close the public hearing and call for a motion to approve/ratify the MOU between Elk Grove Unified School District and the National Union of Healthcare Workers in response to COVID-19 coronavirus 2020-2021.
So moved.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Charis Espinosa, seconded by Mr. Perez. Does a roll call vote? Mr. Yang?
Aye.
Thank you. Ms. Charis Espinosa?
Aye.
Mr. Fortuna?
No.
Ms. Jamerson?
Aye.
Dr. Martinez Alier?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
And myself, it is 6-1.
Thank you.
Try to get through our next action item. Action item, Education Code Section 17556. Consideration of resolution of intent to convey electrical facilities easement to the Sacramento Municipal Utility District for the Pleasant Grove Elementary School project. Ms. Soriano, are there any comments related to this item?
Madam Board President Albiani, there are no public comments related to this item.
Thank you. Mr. Pierce, would you please present?
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Hoffman, Ms. Avalos. Another exciting project, but as part of the Pleasant Grove Elementary School Modernization Project, electrical service upgrades are required. This includes replacement of the main service connection to the campus and related equipment. In order to maintain and service this equipment and lines, SMUD requires an easement that allows them that access. Tonight is the first step in formally granting the easement. So the board is asked to consider and adopt the resolution before you tonight, indicating its intention to grant the easement. It does require a 2/3 vote of the board. And if approved, the notice of intention will be posted publicly throughout the district as well as the Sacramento Bee. If the resolution of intention is approved tonight, it will be brought forward to the board at May 4th, where you would be asked to formally convey the easement. Happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I would like to call for a motion to adopt resolution number 60, intent to convey electrical facilities easement to the Sacramento Municipal Utility District for the Pleasant Grove Elementary School project, and set a public hearing on May 4th, 2021 at 6 p.m.
I move approval of resolution 60.
I'll second it.
Moved by Mr. Fortuna, seconded by Mr. Perez. Roll call vote. Ms. Charis Espinoza?
Aye.
Mr. Fortuna?
Aye.
Ms. Jamerson?
Aye.
Dr. Martinez Alier?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Mr. Yang?
Aye.
And aye, it's unanimous.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. I'd like to entertain a motion to extend our meeting by 30 minutes to 10:30.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Charis Espinoza, seconded by Mr. Perez, our second of the night. All in favor? I get a vote sheet. Mr. Yang?
Aye.
Mr. Perez?
Aye.
Dr. Martina Soler.
Aye.
Ms. Jamerson.
Aye.
Mr. Fortuna.
Aye.
Ms. Charis Espinoza. Aye. And myself, it's unanimous. Thank you. Board member and superintendent reports. Board members, do you have any reports on organizational or committee meetings relative to the district or its operation? Anybody attended anything? All right, thank you. Other items from the floor? Anyone? Ms. Charis Espinoza?
So colleagues, I'm going to make a statement. I'm essentially going to read into the record a statement that we all received via email from legal counsel. And this is in an attempt to finally address something that has come up in the last couple of meetings during public comment. So I'm going to stick to what was sent to us. And just a reminder to folks that, we really can't ad lib here. So at the March 23rd board meeting, I made a request which was approved by the board to have discussion agendas at a future meeting regarding the prospect of providing in-person instruction 5 days per week during the current school year, which ends next month. 3 days later, on March 26th, the district received a notice of legal intent from a representative of a group called the Parent Coalition. The district also received correspondence regarding potential injunction litigation from the same group on April 19th. As a result, board members have been advised by the district's legal counsel to not address these matters in public communications. So board discussions regarding the matters described in the notice of legal intent and the related letter will occur during school board meetings consistent with the Brown Act, which means during closed session. This is frustrating for all of us, but it is what happens when an organization is notified that it is going to be sued, and that is all I can say. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Fortuna.
First, I'd like to just share that Black Line, excuse me, Black Minds Matters co-sponsoring AB 740, which would require school officials to contact a foster child's social worker or attorney before a student would be suspended from school, thereby ensuring that the student would have an experienced person there advocating for them. Patrick O'Donnell has not scheduled this bill for hearing, and Black Minds Matter is asking for people's support by contacting his chief of staff, and that would be at sophia.kwong, KWONG, at asm.ca.gov. Also, we heard tonight from a student about student voice. And so once again, I would like to bring up a request that this board engage in a dialogue about having a student board member. Kind of an important place to have that student voice in addition to the things that we are doing. And, to quote an old expression, I don't want to beat a dead horse to death, but I don't see that I have a choice. Several meetings ago, a statement was made that all public comments are responded to. The board asked for copies of those comments. At our last board meeting, those were not received, and the board was asked to clarify what it was that they wanted, and the clarification was made. And we did not receive the copies of the responses made to the public during public comment. And tonight we're here once again.
Would you like to make a motion to that effect, Mr. Fortuna?
Sure, I'd love to. I move that the Board of Education receive copies of the responses.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. Hold on. I don't believe we can make a motion. I believe you can ask
I
for
can-
it to be put on the agenda, and I need to get a vote for that, and then I can put it on the agenda for you. I've made a mistake. I apologize.
And I took advantage of
And I caught you.
it. Yes, I would like the board to discuss whether or not it would like to receive copies of the responses that are given to the public from the district office that are made during public comment.
Okay. Is there a second?
Discussion, Madam Chair?
Yeah, but we need to get a motion and a second, and then we can discuss.
Do you have a second?
Okay.
I
Thank you, Ms.
third it.
Jamerson. You got cut out. Ms. Jamerson got one in on you.
So I wonder if Mr. Fortuna would be interested in other ways for the board to get that information. And I visualize, so example, like a table of all of the public comments, and the last column is what was the response to it. And I think that might be a more efficient way for us to get all of the information given the volume of comments. So I just wonder if you're amenable to that, Mr. Fortuna.
I think that would be part of the conversation, correct, Mr. Fortuna?
Yes.
Yes, I think that would be part of the conversation, Ms. Chair Espinoza.
Okay, I just understood it as a copy of each individual response as opposed to possibly an aggregated form. So if we're flexible as to how we receive that information, I'm good.
I am flexible as long as there is accountability and transparency.
I think we can discuss what that would look like at a time when we have an action item when we have put it agendized correctly. So roll call vote. Mr. Perez,
Yes, aye.
Dr. Martinez Solir,
Aye.
Ms. Jamerson,
Aye.
Mr. Fortuna, Ms. Charis Espinoza,
Aye.
Mr. Yang,
Aye.
and myself. Mr. Hoffman,
Before we close, I do want to do one piece of, I have written an apology to Ms. Pryor, and I also told her that I would do an apology publicly, so.
one second.
Sure.
I did not vote. And now it's unanimous, and and now you. I apologize, and you're hard to hear.
So I want to make sure that the board knows that I did do a written apology to Ms. Pryor, and I'm also doing that in public tonight to make sure that it's on the record. I'm apologizing for bringing up her name specifically, and as a response to what was being shared in public comment. That's not our practice, not our policy, and for me to bring up her name specifically, respond was an error on my part, and I apologize to her for doing that. We do have a process for responding, and the information that I shared that night was accurate, but I should not have shared it in a public setting. And I will follow up with Ms. Pryor again and set up a time that her and I can address this issue face to face. Thank you.
I appreciate that.
Great job.
Well done.
Well done.
All right, we're ready to adjourn? Oh, yes, of course.
I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you to the Board of Education and Elk Grove Unified School District staff for sending out that letter of supporting the Asian community. That was very touch, and it was when I read that, and many families that read it, they were touched, and they felt like we as a district really supporting them, and we as a really big district in supporting them means so much. And having gone to May as a Heritage Month of Asian descent, all Asian Americans, I think that you built some momentum with all the events that Nat had alluded to on his report. So I just want to say thank you. really appreciate it and thank you.
Thank you. It's 10 o'clock and I'm adjourning on time. Woo.